Blue screens light up justice calling from Sweden cold and Great Lakes falling. Educating fools, real talk streaming. Truth and laughter, crime redeeming. Raise your glass to law and jest. Trials not just pain and stress. Teach the world, grind the gears. Through the humor, through the tears. Michigan draw cutting sharp like ice. Swedish fire burns, truth precise. Shot of whiskey, sip of gin. Rules of justice, we begin. Raise your glass to law and jest. Trials not just pain and stress. Teach the world, grind the gears. Through the humor, through the tears. Bang the gavel, crack the screen. Courtroom chaos in between. Wine and laughter, we all bleed. Streaming trials, feeding need. Layers of law, peeling truth bare. Laughs flow wild, do we even care? Chip on shoulder, beer in hand again. Together on this shaky stand. Raise your glass to law and jest. Trials not just pain and stress. Teach the world, grind the gears. Through the humor, through the tears.
All right. Oh, you and your cat.
Yeah. Hello, here's me and my ginger pussy.
Well, we are again a little behind. We took a break because we thought the court was on an hour break. And then after we ended the stream, realized that no, they were already back live again. So we could have continued, but we decided to take our break anyways.
Yeah.
And get something to eat, get a little rest. And it looks like we have a bunch of local officers coming up to the stand. At least that's what it looks like. So.
Yeah. Hi, Sasha. No, it's my birthday week. It's not my birthday today. I will have my birthday stream on Friday.
Wait, is today Wednesday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. Oh, we got 2 more days to your birthday stream.
Yep, 2 more days.
Nice.
To my birthday stream. So birthday stream Friday from 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
So
Now, this morning we had cross-examination of the state's last expert witness. The cross-examination was extremely disappointing. Then the state rested. The defense then called their first witness, who was a video guy, and the judge with the prosecutor's objection as to the relevancy of the video guy playing the video that the state's been playing for the entire week, being relevant, the judge decided to cut off the defense. So then the defense said, well, we don't have another witness because we planned on going on with this guy for quite a long time. And so now we are.
Yeah. And they had this discussion in front of the jury. And I don't really see if she is going to deny the defense, don't do it in front of the jury. If it was just denied, move on. Yeah. But this was a 15-minute debate.
Yeah. In front of the jury. It was bad. Yeah. and the exhibits weren't labeled. Well, I don't know if the exhibits... The judge characterized it as the defense creating exhibits live. And the defense attorney said, yes, that's what we're doing. And the judge said, well, you can't do that. But that's not... It was more of a demonstration, right? They were playing the videos, the same exhibits that had been admitted over and over and over again. They were playing, but they were pausing it and they were zooming in and they were looking to see if the taser had been moved, who moved the taser, who was in control of the taser. Jacqueline, hey. So this is Michigan cop in Grand Rapids on April 5th, I want to say, something like that, 2022. He initiated a traffic stop. The guy fought with him, ran away from him, ran past his front bumper, which apparently is a thing that cops aren't supposed to chase people past their front bumper. Then tussle, if you will, with the gentleman, pulled out his taser to stun the guy. The guy grabbed the taser, and then the rest of the fight until the end was spent the officer trying to get the taser back from this guy, and the officer ended up shooting the suspect in the head, and now he's on charge for second-degree murder. The argument from the state is that he wasn't justified in taking that shot. The defense, of course, is saying, well, I was in imminent fear of great bodily harm and or death because he had my taser. He was armed with my taser. And so we are just starting the defense's case in chief. We've had 2 days of testimony prior to that. And I have a feeling this guy's guilty. I'm not seeing self-defense. But I want to hear this guy say it. I want to hear this guy say what was going through his head. That's really where I'm at. It's so contradictory for me. I feel a little uneasy, but the video is really bad. The video is just really bad.
Yeah, I wish it was a much clearer case, but I don't think neither the prosecution or the defense is doing a particular good job at proving their case. But
they're really not.
I mean, the video, that final half second,
This is, so it's on our thumbnail. This is right as the trigger is pulled, and so, or right after, I should say, not as, but right after the trigger is pulled. And this is the issue I have with it. Both me and Nick have an issue with this. So the officer presumably is going to testify and say that he that the suspect was had the taser in his hand, was trying to use it against the officer, which everyone agrees, every witness agrees, or at least the expert witnesses agree, that it's bad for an officer to get tased because he can be incapacitated to the point that the suspect could get his firearm. And he was resisting arrest. Yes, he was. He was running. He was fighting. Every time the officer gave him a command, he said, okay, but he never got on the ground, never stopped resisting. He was also drunk off of his ass with a 0.29 or 0.28 or something like that. And so that's the situation. We have a hearing, a little bit of a motion argument from the defense to start off with this afternoon. I am fairly certain they're going to be presenting oral arguments with regard to the judge cutting off their testimony of their video witness, but I have no idea what this is. And again, we're going to watch it at 1.25 speed with closed captioning. Let us know if it's too fast or anything, but that seems to be pretty good for this case. Anything else to add, Nick, before we go?
Nope.
All right.
Yes, sir. We'll be calling Sergeant Timothy Johnson.
So I wasn't asking if you were in the calling witness just for sure sorry yet. So
Okay.
I just want to know if you were ready. So if you need to address anything before they come in. And since it's on your, this one on your case, that's why I asked you first. So anything before the jurors come in?
Not outside the jurors, we're ready to. What's your?
I got a motion. I don't know when you want to address that.
Hey, okay, I thought there was a motion.
Okay, and Mr. Gallagher's now present. I say you weren't here, but you're here now.
Can you get the volume up a bit?
Yep.
I think it's fairly self-explanatory, Judge, as far as just renewing the objection and just putting into the record the defendant's arguments on the pending reasons that we feel may show intent on the part of Mr. Lyoya to use the weapon on Officer Schurr. So far, it's been the prosecution arguing what his intentions were, what was apparent to a witness, based on a cell cam video where it's pretty clear, maybe recording when the user wants it. It gets put down, oh, he hit you too, it gets put back up at certain times. So everybody's basing their opinions on what Mr. Lyoya's intentions may have been from the cell cam video. But we feel we should be able to argue what his intentions may have been based on the fact that if he were placed into arrest there, he's either wanted on several things or was certainly in violation of the law from several courts on probation.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you because I don't want to place a bunch of things about Mr. Lyoya on the record. The court's already determined that they're not admissible or relevant. And so just addressing the renewed motion number 404 and 405. 405, I don't believe is applicable because that has to do with reputation or opinion. And Part A of that rule, Part B of the rule, says that when a person's character or character trait is an essential element of a charge or offense, then it can be proven by relevant specific instances of a person's conduct. That's not what you're requesting, so that particular rule does not apply. As far as 404, I believe that perhaps maybe 404(2)B could apply because in that rule it states that in a homicide case, when self-defense is an issue, the defendant may offer evidence of the alleged victim's trait for aggression. However, in the motion that you listed, the only point out of the listed 9 separate issues, the only one that could potentially have to do with aggression is the first one, and then that is the arrest warrant that you mentioned before, which is not evidence. There's nothing proven, it's a warrant. So, like I said, when compared it to your client, it's as if saying your client has a particular trait for aggression because he's had a warrant for the second-degree murder charge, and that wouldn't be appropriate either. And so I also believe that any attempted explanation, even those that have already been put forth by different witnesses, any attempted explanation of what was going on in Mr. Lyoya's mind, it would be pure speculation on the part of any person.
But we can speculate on what's going on in the defendant's mind.
It's clear what isn't evidence is that he was clearly fighting with the officer. Why he was fighting, I don't know that that's relevant. He clearly is fighting. He was clearly drunk. That is evidence that has been placed on the record. He clearly didn't have a driver's license to present to the officer when he stopped him. He clearly didn't obey several commands. It doesn't matter why he didn't. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why he was drunk. He was drunk. Those are the facts. You can clearly argue that he was intending and he was trying to do this. You can argue that just the same as the people can argue that he wasn't trying to. So because his character is not an essential element, this particular, again, trait for aggression, the only one that was doing is the arrest warrant that was pending, and there's no evidence that Mr. Lyoya was even aware of that warrant. So,
but just to note, there are several other warrants for some of them for years.
none of them have to do with aggression.
There's prior convictions for domestic violence. So if the prosecution opened the door, he's a really good guy. At least usually when it's my client, if I call a witness and they say that, the prosecutor's following right up with
Right, because that's
prior
the defendant.
conviction.
You're treating Mr. Lyoya as if he's the defendant. He isn't. Your client is the defendant.
So the door can't be open on other parties involved.
Not from what I've heard so far, for sure.
So the prosecutor can argue that what they feel his intentions were. His intentions, opening statement, his intentions weren't to use the
The
taser.
intentions were definitely to fight the officer. The intentions were definitely not to comply with his commands. I'm not sure to say, did he intend to use the taser? I don't know how you get that from what you're trying to report.
That's what they said. They said his intentions weren't to use the taser.
Okay, so
But so, and I
I'm
was
just saying it's fair argument that maybe they weren't, but maybe they were. No one knows because that's what it was in his head at the time. So to say, well,
Yeah, just like the argument about him being drunk, there's no evidence to suggest that the officer knew he was drunk. The officer didn't know who he was because the plate didn't match the vehicle. So he had no information on who the driver was. So all of this stuff to me is irrelevant because it doesn't go to the circumstantial information that the officer knew at the time. I think the judge is right here. The only thing that the officer knew is that he wasn't compliant. Maybe he knew that he was drunk. Maybe he could smell it on him and the guy was slurring his words. Maybe he had a suspicion that he was drunk. But he didn't know about the warrants, right, Nick? I mean, I don't see how that would be relevant to this analysis. You're muted. That's okay. We'll keep moving on.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Jim. Yeah, I mean, the officer has to go by more or less worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. I agree with the judge, though, on this one. In the context, you have to go with what the officer knew at the time. He knew at the time that he was pulling over a car where the driver immediately got out, refused to listen. When he told him to get back in, he didn't. When he asked him for his ID, he wasn't able to produce it. When he said, okay, I'm going to detain you, he pushed the officer away and ran. When the officer finally got hands on him at the, on the grass, he fought and resisted. When the officer pulls out the taser, he grabbed the taser and pulled it from the officer and kept his hands on that taser throughout the rest of the encounter. That's the stuff that's relevant, right?
Yeah.
Why did the officer run the plates in the first place? It doesn't matter. Officers in Michigan, at least, can run the plates of anybody at any time. It's not considered privileged or private information. It's considered information you put out there in the public, and an officer can run it at any time, just randomly. And they do. And they found that it was registered to like a red Ford Focus, and he's driving a silver Nissan.
He's got this warrant, so he must have meant to use it. It doesn't jive.
Well, a car full of unlawful contraband that would show multiple felonies.
There is no front plate. There's no front plate in Michigan.
Right, but say none of that existed. But he's still, everything
Yeah,
he
so
knows
they were
everything.
definitely
Why
different.
does it matter if he had all these prior things versus the fact that he's clearly at least 3 times illegal drinking and driving? For example, he's clearly fighting with the officer. So why he's fighting with the officer, if it was no reason, it wouldn't change anything.
Right.
It wouldn't change the fact that he's not complying.
Your Honor, you made a ruling prior to trial, stay in mind, and then now we've had several occasions where the prosecution argues what his intentions were. What Mr. Lyoya's intentions were.
I didn't hear them argue several times. I think during opening he may have made a comment, but
And the witnesses that they've elicited testimony from about what Mr. Lyoya's intentions were. So I don't mean to test the court's patience. I'm going to make a record as far as how we get towards
and I don't believe that testimony was necessarily elicited. I do recall witnesses testifying to things, including on the video. That, as you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it before, we mentioned it just a few moments ago, but stating how the cell phone video, the friend taking cell phone video, saying he's not, doesn't have a taser, or I don't see a taser. Oh yeah, yes I do. So it's. I mean, the jurors will see what they see. They know they have the
Yeah, she commented.
She
commented on the same thing. I was commenting on that the friend was saying when the officer was giving instructions to stop or drop the taser, the friend was like, "Hey, there's no taser, man." Nah, just kidding. I seen it. So the judge is commenting on that. It's ridiculous.
By the people, and I just still am maintaining my previous ruling for all the reasons that I stated, that these 2 rules do not allow or make those particular allegations or the things listed doesn't make them relevant or admissible. I'll say admissible. So they're not admissible. And then we can have the jurors come in. Is there anything else? Is there anything else for the defense before the jurors come in?
No siren that we saw. Backup, I think he called in backup at the stop. Yeah, there's a bit here that aren't procedure, I would assume. We really didn't have control of the situation, in my opinion. Because he stepped out of the car. The suspect stepped out of the car. He told the suspect to get back in the car. Suspect did not get back in the car. So,
L4 and EE.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
back. You may be seated. And defense may call your first witness, or your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Sergeant Timothy Johnston to the stand.
And sir, before you take your seat, if you please raise your right hand, my clerk will say that you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state and spell your full name for the record?
My name is Timothy Johnston, TimothyJohnston.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently retired.
Have you had were you previously employed at GRPD?
Yes,
And that's Grand Rapids Police Department?
that's correct.
And since you left the Grand Rapids Police Department, have you had a haircut since then?
No, I have not.
And while you were employed there, what was your position?
I started out as a patrol officer on night shift and worked for 28 years on the street as a patrol function, and the last several years as a supervisor on patrol.
And can you briefly describe what your duties and responsibilities were around the time of April 4th of 2022?
Yeah, that was a day I actually came in on overtime. They're short-staffed and were asking for volunteers to come in and work. And I was assigned to the East Service Area as a supervisor.
Can you describe what the East Service Area is?
It's one of the geographic areas that Grand Rapids is divided up into teams cover. So the East Service Area is generally from Cottage Grove, which is just south of Hall Street, and it runs all the way south to 44th Street out by Kalamazoo. And the east-west boundaries are from Clyde Park all the way out past the East Belt Line to East Paris.
And I think you had mentioned that at that time you were working overtime because they were short-staffed.
Yeah, the week prior, at the shift that I work, announcement was made that they needed volunteers to come in and work that day.
How many people were usually assigned to the East Service Area?
That service area is usually assigned 7 to 8 officers and then 1 supervisor.
And how many officers were assigned on April 4th of 2022?
I believe at the time of this incident, I think there was either 3 or 4 officers and then myself.
And as part of your duties as a supervisor, can you explain a little more what your duties were?
So I would respond to major incidents. I wouldn't go to some of the, I guess, standard type of calls that come out, but anything involving like felonies and that sort of thing. And then to supervise those scenes as well as review officers' reports.
Okay, and that day were you in the field?
Yes.
Okay. And in your experience as a Grand Rapids police officer, were you ever involved in tense, rapidly evolving hand-to-hand use of force situations?
Yeah, I worked the entire 28 years on patrol. So, I mean, if I averaged only 4 a year, it'd put me well over 100, I think.
So I want to go back to April 4th, Monday, April 4th of 2022. You mentioned that you were working that day. What time did your shift start?
My shift started at 6:30 a.m.
And before this incident occurred, which was between 8 and 8:15, where were you?
I was at the parking lot of the Croc Center at Division in Alger.
Approximately how far away is that from where the incident occurred?
It's 8 city blocks for a mile.
Yeah, right.
About 3 miles, maybe 2-3 miles.
How long did it take you, I guess from the time that you heard Officer Schurr calling out the traffic stop, how long approximately would it take you to get there to?
Between 2 and 3 minutes, I believe.
And do you recall hearing Officer Schurr call in a traffic stop?
Yes.
And when you hear someone call out a traffic stop, what is the common practice at GRPD?
If you're available, you would slide by or start heading that way until we know that everything's safe, and that there's I guess every traffic stop's an unknown risk traffic stop.
And can you explain what you mean by unknown risk?
Sure. I was a field training officer for 24 years, and so we teach high risk stops and unknown risk stops. An unknown risk stop, any stop is a potential threat. You don't know who's in the vehicle. Even if it's for speeding or what may seem just to be a traffic violation, we still have tactics that we employ to keep ourselves safe until the conclusion of the stop.
And so that you typically will have at least one person respond, even if help isn't explicitly requested?
Yes.
And when you were on your way to respond, once you heard Officer Schurr call out the traffic stop, what did you do?
At the time, I was on a phone call from another officer, also was the supervisor of our mounted unit team. And I was on a phone call with another officer that had a scheduling issue with that. And so I was at the point, I think that Officer Schurr called out that he had somebody running. I ended that and responded code 1.
And can you explain to the jury what code 1 is?
That'll be activating all the emergency equipment on the vehicle, like sirens, exceeding the speed limit.
And you mentioned you heard him say the second, or just say, "I've got one running." Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And did you hear Officer Schurr call out another command or request on the radio?
I did hear him ask to send more cars.
What did you interpret that to mean?
I could hear in the radio transmission sounds of like a struggle, heavy breathing, the I guess tone or inflection in his voice.
Can you describe what that tone was like?
Labored and I guess an excited, elevated tone, desperation.
And at that point, what did you do?
I was already going in that code 1 response. I think that was, I don't know if I was halfway there yet or something like that. Just continued as fast as I could to get there.
And do you know approximately how long after you heard Officer Schurr call out the initial traffic stop that you arrived on scene?
I think it was, again, somewhere between 2 or 3 minutes.
And that would have been potentially from when he called out the request from that he had one running?
Yes.
Okay. And did you hear him give any other requests over the radio?
I just heard I was probably maybe 3 blocks from the scene or his location that he was at when I heard him get on the radio again, stating that he'd been in an officer-involved shooting.
And when you heard that, what was your initial response?
I was still had to make a couple more turns to pull up on scene, and I came around the corner and could see his cruiser and the suspect vehicle ahead of me. Another Officer Mott and his partner, Officer Grace, arrived pretty much simultaneously with me at that point.
And what did you know when you arrived on scene?
Really, only what had been transmitted over the air, that there had been a foot pursuit, the sounds of some kind of struggle,
Yeah.
and then Officer Schurr saying that he had been an officer-involved shooting. At that point, I didn't know who was the suspect, how many suspects, what their locations were, what kind of weapons were involved. There's more unknowns than knowns.
And what did that indicate to you?
For me, as a supervisor, even line officer arriving first on scene, our priority is to secure the scene and make sure there are no more threats to officers or the public in any way, and then render aid.
And when you arrived on scene, once you got out of your car, what did you observe?
Again, I think either Officer Grace or Officer Mott kind of ran up at the same time that I did.
Based on his testimony and his appearance, right?
The side of the curb to my right as I was running up towards him. Looked like he was next to a tree or behind a tree. I still didn't know how many suspects there were. And Officer Schurr was either leaning on the tree or kind of hunched over, breathing hard and just pointing.
And what did that indicate to you?
Thank you, Wendy.
That's where I should
$20
focus my
super
attention.
chat. I am
And what did you
monetized
observe
again,
about?
and I'm
I said
pulling
you worked with
out
Officer Schurr before April
ahead
4th
of
of
Nick.
2022?
Yet
Only on a couple of occasions because we worked opposite rotations.
Welcome back on Friday
everyone
on my birthday
with,
stream, Wendy.
With Officer Schurr a couple months before that, we worked a sexual assault case together
I don't understand what the relevance of these
that we
questions
received
are.
awards for.
No, not me neither.
I'm hoping
And when you saw Officer Schurr that day,
someday
what did you
soon
notice
I'm
about him
gonna
when you
get to a
arrived?
point. Okay, we go.
Complete exhaustion.
Complete exhaustion.
He was bent, like I said, he was sort of bent, hunched over. You hear him breathing. Even in his radio traffic as I was approaching, you can hear his breaths gasping for air.
And what did that indicate to you?
That he'd reached his physical limit. It reminded me of at the end of an Olympic sprint race or something. You see the athletes afterwards with their hands on their knees, breathing hard.
And once you saw Officer Schurr, what did you do next?
I like
He was
that
on his
part of the
feet at
testimony.
least, and I knew another officers that were closer to him would assist him. So I guess I turned my attention still to trying to secure the scene. I could see another occupant outside the vehicle, and I could see Mr. Lyoya on the grass off to the right.
And at that time, did you know who either of the parties were? Either Mr.
No.
Lyoya or the passenger of the
No.
vehicle? Okay. And were you wearing a body-worn camera at the time that you responded?
Yes. Yeah.
And was your body camera on when you responded?
Yeah, it was automatically activates when you activate the emergency equipment in the vehicle. As soon as you turn on your lights or your siren, your body cam is activated, as well as the in-car dash camera.
Okay. And have you reviewed the body-worn camera footage related to this incident on
Yes.
April 4th?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would ask to publish Defendant's Exhibit EE, which has already been stipulated to, which is the body cam
I'm going to get
footage of
additional
Sergeant
body
Johnson.
cam.
Hmm.
Potential trigger warning. I have no idea what it's going to be in here. I don't know where my little thing went.
Could you turn that lights on, please?
You might see Wendy face down on pavement. We're not sure yet.
On your head. Turn around, face the car. Walk back towards us. Keep your hands on your head. Keep to the right. Keep to the right. Go to the right. The right. Now come back this way.
Oh, so they're more or less showing now. This is how
Keep coming
the
back to me,
start
Bernard.
should have gone
Keep coming back to me.
Yeah.
when they were arresting the passenger.
Thank you. And for the record, this is at
I don't.
the
This is
22nd mark of.
my immediate reaction is, oh, this is how it was supposed to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you see the first Officer Schurr, the defendant, when he arrives and the guy immediately gets out of his car and he yells at him to get back in and he doesn't, instead of running straight up to the guy and get your hands on him, maybe tell him, put your hands on your head, turn around, walk backwards towards me, right?
Hmm.
But I still don't think what Officer Schurr did was unlawful. I think it probably violated policy.
Yeah.
Defendant's Exhibit EE. Sergeant Johnson, I noticed that you have your firearm drawn. Can you explain why?
Again, with an officer-involved shooting that's just occurred, again, I do not know what kind of weapons may be involved, who is in possession of them, who all may be in the vehicle. So it's just for protect myself if someone was to draw a weapon. The same reason we order them hands on their head. We don't want them reaching around the waistband or pockets where weapons may be. So we have to keep the hands in view the whole time.
Okay. And why were you ordering him to walk backwards towards you?
We would bring him back in this position, puts us at a tactical advantage, and then we can secure that person and pat them down for a weapon, make sure they're unarmed before we proceed with securing the rest of the scene. I can't let that person just be wandering around or get behind me and potentially attack me. Like, again, I don't know where these threats might come from. A lot of unknowns.
That's what the experts say.
Can you play, please?
10 more steps. 10 more steps. Go. Okay, down your knees right there. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands on your head. Down your knees.
Put your hands behind your back, palms facing the air, bend over your waist. Do not look back.
So we're at 49 seconds of Exhibit EE. I noticed you were what seemed like kind of yelling at the individual who was getting out of the car. Why is that?
If you notice at the beginning of the video, I started giving him commands to move right, but he moved left several times. And
I don't think
I'm
this
just
is good
projecting
for
my
the
voice
defense.
so he can hear me.
Showing how it actually was supposed to be done.
Yeah, I don't think introducing this video was. I like the testimony about him being exhausted, like he was just ran a sprint at the Olympics. That was fine. Showing the video, unless there's something coming up, I don't like this part of it. Yeah, I agree. It's not very defense friendly.
And I guess to emphatically give those commands to gain compliance or obedience from them. So as quickly as I can, because my ultimate goal still is to clear that car and then render first aid. So I need to get obedience quickly, make the scene safe as quick as I can in order to administer first aid.
And why did you order the passenger of the vehicle to be detained at this point?
Again, I still don't know what his involvement was in this incident, and I don't know if he has a gun in his sweatshirt or in his waistband or anything.
Okay. Bob, can you play, please?
Here, I need to want this cover down the vehicle here. Is there anybody else in that vehicle? Okay, next car up. Anybody up to the car, make yourself known now! Yeah, we're gonna clear the car first.
At this point, I'm waiting for more officers. That's why there's a pause here. There's no backup yet. I'm just waiting for another officer because we go up in either a 2 or 3 man team to clear a vehicle, but nobody's available.
And why do you, I mean, when available, why do you typically want 2 or 3 people to clear a vehicle?
So you can cover multiple sides of the car. There's also
From the defense. So tell me exactly what my client
concerns
did
even
wrong.
with surroundings
Yeah.
too. So there's people. Some are focused on the car, one side of the car, the other side.
I mean,
Other
the
people
rebuttal from the prosecution
I don't know
should
how many
be
people have fled from
to
this car. I
show
don't know if
these
there's
two
other potential
videos
suspects hiding between
side
these
by
houses
side.
or anything.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be done.
And that was.
This
stopped
is
at 1
why
minute and
this is
20
not
seconds.
self-defense.
You know what? I wouldn't.
Good luck, Nick. You guys with him, you go clear the car from driver's side. We're gonna keep working on him, yeah? Who's gonna be? You need. All right, you two go up and clear that car. I'll call you.
And this is 1 minute and 51 seconds. I notice everyone has their firearms drawn at this point. Why?
Again, this is standard police training. That this is an unknown threat in this vehicle. For me, at the beginning of my career, Officer Scott Flayhive from Grand Haven was killed going up on a car like this.
Well, I feel like they might be trying to with this lefty, but it's not going so well.
No, all I get is more. This is great for the prosecution.
Yeah, like Karen says here, this guy took his training seriously and acted accordingly, and the defendant did not. I said from day one, the defendant did not act properly. And then I know Branca has a strong self-defense standpoint and says from a technical standpoint, that doesn't matter. This still reeks of icky. I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy, the defendant, being a cop. I don't like him walking away from this. Is it maybe not second-degree murder? Is it maybe manslaughter? Maybe. But
yeah, I mean, there's something there, but I mean, this is a much better prosecution's case than the prosecution had by this witness alone so far.
Got a member chat from Wendy.
Hey. And thank you.
But never expected. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Appreciated, never expected. That's perfect.
Because somebody's hiding in the back seat.
But Friday, it's kind of expected.
We'll stop you.
Yeah, Friday it's expected. Not today, right, Nick?
Yeah. Wheel of Regrets will be up, and I might have a few new objects on the Wheel of Regrets.
Nice.
Behind that, called the C-pillar, that block between the rear window and the back seat, and you sort of use that as a shield for yourself to even look in that back seat, make sure there's not somebody crouched down in there before you move forward and look in and move forward up to the driver's side.
I say fight them all and get rid of their immunity.
Okay, you can play.
Can you see anything in there? Nope. Okay, it's like front. Yeah, from that side. I don't know.
And when you approach the car from behind, Bob, can you back up just a little bit? Sorry, I don't know the timer, but if you could go back to as they're approaching the car from behind. A little further. Yeah, or a little from the back, sorry. All right, from here, I guess, go forward a little bit. Yeah, play it from here. Okay, stop it from here. I guess as you were approaching the car, could you tell how many people were inside or if anyone was
No,
inside?
I think it was a combination of, it was like rain and sleet, so it was cold on the outside of the car, and I don't know if it was from breathing.
I get what they're going to say. They're going to say that
the window, back
the
window
officer was
particularly
so
very,
careful
obscured,
because he
like,
didn't know what was
fog
going on, and
and
that's
with the
why
reflection with the wet
Officer
glass,
Schurr
it
was
very
also
difficult to see
very
in there.
concerned and scared.
At one
He
point,
didn't know what was going
go
on in
for
that
it,
car. He
I
didn't know who
put
was
my
in there.
light
If he
on
had a
and
gun or
gun
anything.
right up to the window to try to get at least the back seat floorboards and that to light up, because I couldn't really tell through the back window.
Okay. And once you were done clearing, or I guess what happened next after you cleared the car?
At that point, we sort of rallied back, I think, near the cruiser and go around and then form a team to move up to where Mr. Lyoya is laying in the grass there. And again, I still don't know, we have a fear of this person could be playing possum, so to speak, if there's still a potential threat, even as we approach to render aid, if there's any kind of weapon present.
And when did you first become aware that there was Mr. Lyoya had possession of a taser?
At the point that I approach him, I think if you show the video further, we approach, and at first I see a black angular object slightly, he's face down and sort of under where his left hip would be. I initially thought that was like the back corner of like a Glock handgun or something, but as I got closer, I could tell that it was Officer Schurr's body camera that apparently fallen off. And it was like halfway under Mr. Lyoya. And then I ended up grabbing Mr. Lyoya by his right arm to roll him towards me. And as I did that, then I could see the yellow taser under the right side where I pulled his arm out from.
Your Honor, permission to approach? And I am showing him what's been previously marked as Defendant's Exhibit L4, which the parties have stipulated to. Sergeant Johnson, do you recognize this?
There appears to be a still picture of Officer Schurr's taser in the mud next to what I believe is Mr. Lyoya's hand.
And you had just described that when you found the taser, it was under Mr. Lyoya's body.
Yes.
Was this photo taken after, I guess, to your knowledge, was this photo taken after you had already rolled him over?
Yeah, when we originally came up to him, it was over top of it, so we didn't even see it until we rolled him over onto his back.
So he was in possession of the taser. Where was Officer Schurr during all of this? This is what I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Let's see what the state does with the rest.
Whatever they.
Good afternoon, sir.
Asking if you're on vice, because usually vice officers
I have
don't
one
like that.
question.
You just
Do
retired.
you regard your stop as the correct way to do it? Yes.
Oh, right.
Well done. Yeah, that's the only question.
We just watched your video, so your body cam video. And have you had an opportunity to see the body cam video from Officer Schurr? Yes. Okay. Now, would you want to compare the two and see who did their procedures right?
Yeah. I just want to go back to some of your statements that you made. The first thing you said is, you taught this when you were with Paramus Police Department. You did some of the training for officers on traffic stops, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things you said was every traffic stop is an unknown risk.
That's correct.
You don't know what's in that car.
Yes, sir.
You don't know who's in that car. Yeah,
Yes.
I can
Yes,
see it. And quite frankly, there's a lot of times with guns in cars in Grand Rapids. When you were working, that was an issue.
Yes.
It was not uncommon to find a gun on a person in the car.
No, not uncommon.
And between the seats in the car.
It's very common.
Under the seat of a car.
Even more common.
Even more common. So, guns, and going back to some of your training, I've got some training records here. When you talk about training, did you train recruits or are you training officers?
They go through what was labeled an in-house training through our training. And then once they're
this
put out on
guy
the
looks
street,
more
they
like
do
a
field training
liberal
program,
arts
and they have officers,
professor
that they're with it for
than a cop.
different phases, and I was one of those field training officers.
But in terms of even the training, I think a lot of the training, when you train those people, they talk about, even when you start, is the danger of weapons in a car. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
That you have scenarios where you may have one person with a gun in the car or two people in the car, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you're doing an unknown traffic stop, that's part of the unknown traffic stop is you're approaching. You basically approach every car that it could have a weapon in it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right. One of the things you said, and it kind of backs up did you have an opportunity to review your report?
Yes.
Okay, and I've looked at highlight some things in your report, and you kind of testified to this. My goal is to make the scene safe as quickly as possible so we can safely move forward or render aid. So you definitely want to render aid to Patrick.
Yes, sir.
But without being attacked or shot by the subject standing outside the car. So you were worried about that.
Yeah. Again, I don't know.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
And even at that point in time, though, you at least had four officers because you said you responded two pulled up at the same time.
A two-man unit that was Officer Grace and Officer Mott. And
the defendant.
And then Officer Schurr was.
And then yourself.
Yes.
So there's four officers, but you were still concerned, even with four officers at the scene, that You didn't know who was in the car.
Correct.
You didn't know who. If Ame is his name. If the passenger was armed.
Yeah, we still have two suspects.
Sure.
Mr. Lyoya, that's on the ground. So, and then Officer Schurr is obviously out of commission because he's so exhausted. I wouldn't even consider him a usable asset at that point.
But there's at least 3 of you.
Yes.
So you clearly outnumber the passenger.
Yes.
But there still could be somebody in the car because you don't know.
Correct, sir.
And that's one of the things you said. And one of the problems was even in your report, the rain and reflections on the car windows obscured my ability to see clearly inside the suspect vehicle.
Yes.
So that was an issue because it's a complete unknown in there. There could have been somebody else hiding.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you kind of go through all that we saw on your body cam.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to further.
That's it.
Yeah, short and concise. I mean, I think the defense accidentally just proved the state's case.
And Sergeant Johnson, I just have one question for you. You were asked about the passenger, but you weren't worried about the threat with him anymore because he immediately complied with your commands, right?
Once he's been secured, detained, and patted down,
he obeyed the
commands.
commands.
The side. But somebody's got to be keep custody of him. So that takes another officer out of like available assets there, and I can wait for more to respond to fill those positions.
And at that time, there were multiple. How many officers were on scene?
I don't even know because a lot of the activity was behind me.
When do you just
sirens
found
getting
her
closer.
fifth husband?
At some point, I think
Yeah.
Officer Leheiss and then Officer Sanders arrived. And those are the two that went up with me to clear the car.
And when you chase individuals, is it also
Wendy
common
has
for
been
them
out
to be armed with
smoking a lot,
weapons?
so now she's barely
Yes,
holding her breath.
Tackled several people that had guns on them.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Just one follow-up. I just want to make sure you're clear. She said in her question, that one question was you weren't concerned about the person standing outside the car. But your statement, you said, in your report, excuse me, the subject in the front yard without being attacked or shot by the subject standing outside the car. So when you initially showed up, there's a person standing outside the car, right?
I don't understand what the discrepancy is.
That was your question. I just want to make sure.
Well, I think the point was that at what point was he no longer a threat? And that's why I explained not until he's secured. He's as a threat until he's secured and patted down.
So that's what I'm saying. When you pull up and he's standing outside the car,
He's a potential threat. Yeah.
No further questions.
I'm sure you made this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objections?
no objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
We've had like
Thank you, Your Honor.
3 jury questions. That's it. I'm disappointed in the jury.
Yeah, very disappointed.
Your Honor, the defense calls Sam Mott.
Sam, I didn't catch the last name. They didn't say officer.
Yeah, that look full tactical gear. That's an officer.
Please raise your right hand for clerk this way.
And another midget.
Testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God. Thank you. You may be seated.
In that county, they should try to find bigger people.
Good afternoon, Officer Mott.
Good afternoon.
Where do you work?
Grand Rapids Police Department.
How long do you work there?
Approximately 4 years.
Okay, and what's your title and describe your job duties?
I'm a patrol officer on our day shift.
Okay. And were you on duty on April 4th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you receive a call to respond to a scene involving a shooting by a police officer, Christopher Schurr?
Yes, sir.
When you received that call, were you in your car?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was anybody with you at that time?
Yes, sir. I was doubled up with a partner.
What does that mean?
It was 2 officers in 1 car.
Do you recall who was with you?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Officer Jordan Grace.
Okay. Did you respond to the scene?
Yes, sir.
I'd like you to tell us what you saw as you arrived in your car.
As I pulled up to the scene, Sergeant Tim Johnson was pulling up as well. We saw Chris standing a couple houses down in the block to our north. He was standing in the middle of the street, and we couldn't see anything else other than another vehicle with an individual standing on the passenger side of that vehicle.
Okay. And you want to refer to Chris, you're talking about Officer Schurr?
Yes, sir.
Had you ever met Officer Schurr before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you guys friends? How do you describe your relationship with him?
We played basketball a couple of times when we weren't at work.
Okay. So kind of just somebody you might hang out with playing basketball, but no deeper relationship than that?
Correct.
All right. Now you say you played basketball with him. Have you ever seen him exert himself?
So the last witness that testified, the state's or the defense's second witness is the one who showed up first after the shooting. I think this might be the third guy or one of the third that showed up. 3 and 4. He's 3 and one of the 3 and 4 that.
Oh, playing basketball?
Yes, sir.
Could you describe his level of physical fitness?
He had excellent cardio. He was one of the few guys that would continue to run the entire time we were playing.
Was he in better shape than you, or was he?
Yes, sir.
So all of our criticism
So
about
as you
his
approached the scene,
cardio-
did you get out of your
Damn it.
cruiser?
Yes, sir.
You were wrong.
And did you have an opportunity
Hey,
to
welcome.
engage with Officer Schurr?
I did.
Can you please describe what you saw as far as Officer Schurr's physical condition when you engaged with him?
As I approached Officer Schurr, he was standing on the rear passenger side of a vehicle that was parked along the curb. Officer Schurr appeared to be out of breath, and he was having trouble making any comments towards us. He looked absolutely exhausted, kind of looking down towards the ground. At that point, I told Officer Schurr to go take a breather.
Okay. Did you follow up with him at a later time?
No, sir.
Okay. You also mentioned that there was another individual at the scene that you were concerned about and other officers were engaging with. It was the passenger of that car?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you have a chance to interact with that passenger?
Yes, sir.
Please tell us what you observed when you talked to the passenger of the car.
I took possession of the passenger, placed him in cuffs. As I was walking him back to the car, he appeared very intoxicated. He smelled of alcohol and continuously asked me if his friend was okay.
Okay. And you placed him in the back of a patrol car?
Yes, sir.
Did you obtain his phone for evidence?
Yes, sir.
And you preserved it for such?
Yes, sir. I placed it in my home.
Nothing further. No questions?
We're just rolling through the witnesses.
May this witness please speak into the public?
You may, Your Honor.
Your objection.
Objection, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okie dokie. All right.
Please may call your next witness.
That was short.
Short and sweet. I think they're getting a point across. He's in good shape. He was out of breath.
As Derek says, these statements doesn't sound good for the defense.
Please raise your right hand and my clerk will swear you in. Please solemnly swear that-
Not with that video showing how the stop should have gone down. I mean, that was really bad.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Nicholas Calati, spelled Calati.
How are you employed, sir?
Grand Rapids Police Department,
And how long have you been employed with GRPD?
27 years.
Okay. And, sir,
I don't know if I
were you
spelled it right.
on duty back on April 4th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
And assume you know the incident we're referring to on April 4th, 2022. And if you could just tell me, what were your duties that day?
That day I was working as the patrol supervisor for the south end of the city.
He was the one in charge of
And
this officer.
What do you recall as far as how you became involved in this situation here with Officer Schurr?
That early morning, Officer Schurr called out a traffic stop. Shortly thereafter, he called out a foot pursuit, and that drew our attention and started going his way.
Okay. Where do you recall where you were when you first heard the initial call out?
Yeah, I was right around Franklin or MLK and Ionia, or 131 right there.
Okay. And if you could just explain as far as what you do after those calls are coming out.
When those calls come out, we activate our lights and sirens because it's emergency response. And then as I'm going as a supervisor, I help coordinate a response from the other officers or any other needs that we have, be it medical or anything like that.
Okay. And did you ultimately go to the scene here?
I did.
And what do you recall observing when you arrived?
I did.
When I arrived, I was
hear
not
it.
the first one there.
Then I
There were a
was
couple
like-
other officers that had arrived first. As I was approaching, we had coordinated what we needed, protected, and then see who we still had to make contact with, surroundings, like anything that could be dangerous for our officers, had to keep an eye on that, and coordinate a rescue effort.
And was it your understanding when you arrived that it was a situation where a subject had disarmed a police officer of their weapon?
Correct.
And is that a fairly rare situation for
It
GRPD?
is.
So was it treated very seriously as far as very
It was.
carefully?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you have the opportunity to view Christopher Schurr here?
Yes, I made contact with him as soon as I got on scene.
Had you known him before this?
Yes.
And if you can, explain what was his condition when you made contact with him?
When I made contact with him, you can tell he was like worn out, tired. His face was pale. still breathing kind of heavily. I would say kind of like a slouched posture instead of having all the strength type of thing. Like if you were to sit up straight, as opposed to having a bunch of energy and after you have expelled all your energy.
Okay. How long did you end up staying on scene, roughly? Do you recall? Quite a while?
Yeah, for the duration of the day, pretty much.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Why is this it?
No questions.
I have no idea.
Get into some tactical procedures.
Yeah, it's almost as if they are scared of.
Oh, there's a jury question. Oh. I'm gonna
Booby
slow it down
cam.
for the jury question.
Booby cam.
Do you want me to zoom in for you, Nick?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Her wrist is healing, though. Yeah, 2 days ago she had a big bandage, and now it's just a little brace. So good. Happy to hear that for the clerk. Yeah, this is the closest Dally gets to boobs. Hey, Paige. Welcome. Glad you're here. I'd pull up your chat right now, but I'm waiting to get a witness thing.
It's not really a question for the witness. If you want to approach him.
She says she doesn't think the question is appropriate and they're approaching. So, again, juries can ask questions in Michigan, but if it's not an appropriate question or relevant or for whatever reason, if it violates the rules of evidence, like if an attorney wouldn't be able to ask it, then the jury can't ask it.
Yes, please.
So there was a jury question, but apparently it was inappropriate. All right, who's our next witness?
Your Honor, we'll be calling Captain David Cyber to the stand.
Captain David, I like that. I didn't catch the last name, though.
5-minute break. I'm sorry.
So 5 minutes is not long enough. We're going to take a restroom break for this 14 people. If not 14 restrooms.
Sorry, maybe 15-minute break. So, okay.
It's a little early for a break, but I guess we can have them now.
I
know. I'm sorry.
We'll just do a brief, we'll do a 5-minute break, and then we'll just take another longer break later. Since it's only been an hour, so hopefully that's enough. And we will take another restroom break. So we'll come back.
I'm not sure what they were trying. I mean, the only thing we can assume what they were trying to get at is what they got at, which is that he was out of breath. We know him to be a fit officer, and he was out of breath. And so they're essentially establishing the fact that this was an exhaustive fight for this officer. And if you guys are coming in late to this trial, I'm not going to go back and play the body cam video, and I'm sure it might come up later. But Nick and I did a breakdown of all the videos in this case last week with Andrew Bronca. And that's in my playlist, and I'm sure it's in Nick's playlist as well.
Yeah, it is in my playlist as well.
And then on day one, especially in the morning, there was a lot of video played. Well, actually, all day one, morning and afternoon, there's a lot of video played. And to me, this officer is guilty because of that video. Unless I hear something, and I know this burden is on the state, right?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it, and I'm like, looks pretty bad. Looks pretty bad when you get the suspect in the back of the head. So I need to watch it so that I can have the opinion. Yeah. So it's in our thumbnail, but this is the moment just after the officer fired, and this is the position that they're in. So yes, Lyoya, the suspect, the one that was shot and killed, is fighting with the officer. He does have the officer's taser. He took it from him. He's chased him all over the yard. Meaning the officer has chased Lyoya all over the yard, and the officer is extremely out of breath. They've been fighting for about 3.5 minutes. And this is when the shot's taken. It's just bad optics. It's just really bad optics.
Yeah.
For me. But that's just a still from the image or from the video. I didn't know if you want to say anything else, Nick. I should have.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be Captain David something. Look at, he's got his little feathers on, his bars. This is the guy, I believe, that testified very favorable for the defendant in the preliminary examination. We're probably going to go over the video with this guy. If this guy's going to talk about police procedures, then we're most likely going over the video. So you guys will see the video in a bit. Yes, and then 9 p.m. on Saturday. Yes, thank you, Wendy. 9 p.m. on Saturday, I am having another Lego stream.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, David Siver, D-A-V-I-D-S-I-V-E-R.
And what is your...
I got the
current
spelling right,
occupation?
Lefty.
I'm a police captain with Grand Rapids Police Department.
Yeah, Recovery Attic
And
is joining
How long
us.
have you been a captain at the Grand Rapids Police Department?
I've been a captain for approximately 3 years. A little over 3 years. I've been a police officer now for
I'm going to speed it up
26
again.
years.
Sorry.
And can you talk briefly about some of the different positions you've held at Grand Rapids Police Department?
Yes. When I hired on started out as a patrolman, assigned to second shift patrol, also the midnight patrol shift. And then in 2004, I was selected for the special response team, our department's full-time tactical team. Spent 11 years in that team and then was promoted to sergeant in 2015. Worked nights and day shift patrol as a sergeant for a couple of years, then went back to the SWAT team.
Nick, you want to take this question?
How is this trial going? Not good for the defense, because in my honest opinion, the defense is doing a better job proving the state's case.
They really are. They really they're not doing good.
Yeah, this is not good.
2017 as a sergeant, promoted to lieutenant. 2019 was the midnight, one of the midnight shifts shift commander. And then in February of 2022, was selected to take over the training unit until
I don't know the highest rank.
a couple years back. We had a little reorganization that became a captain's position, where now I oversee the training and engagement division, which houses the training unit and the community engagement unit, kind of our hiring, recruiting arm, and our training arm.
And how long have you been involved with the training unit?
As the commander for 3 years, a little over 3 years now, but I've been involved in training since roughly 2002, when I was selected as a defensive tactics or subject control instructor. And then 2004, emergency vehicle operations instructor through the state police. 2006 or 2007, I became a firearms instructor, Krav Maga instructor.
Krav Maga.
What is that?
I'm sorry. Krav Maga is another form of defensive tactics, a system, if you will. And then 2013, I became a field training officer as well.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, and then also a taser instructor since 2005 or 6 as well. And a master taser instructor a couple years back that just lapsed.
Have you received any, in addition to this, have you received any specialized training in law enforcement, defensive tactics, or other use of force?
Yes, the certification courses are usually a week or two long. And then I also have attended the Force Science certification course. It's a week-long course. The executive management program through Northwestern's Policing Institute also.
And but prior to working with the Grand Rapids Police Department, did you work for any other agencies?
Yes, I started my career in the city of Saginaw back last century, 1999. I got laid off. That's how I ended up here.
Okay. And when you came to Grand Rapids, what are some of, I guess, why did you come to Grand Rapids?
One, for the opportunity, right? It's a much larger agency than City of Saginaw, a lot more growth and opportunity, job satisfaction. Those kind of
Locally, they call it Sag and Nasty.
And have you taught or trained?
Yeah, at this point, he has to take this down.
Tactics?
I have since roughly 2002.
I said it since the first video was out. I was like, this officer needs to take the stand. So that's all I got to say.
In those various areas. We have regular mandatory training where it's in-service training, if you will. So those blocks of instruction rotate through the year. And I've assisted in those since 2002, 4, 5, 6 in that range. Also, during my tenure on the SWAT team, we trained pretty much every week, and I assisted instruction or teaching in those areas. I also assisted teaching at Grand Valley State Police Academy in the areas of subject control, use of force, other topics since 2004 to roughly 2015. And then I also taught a couple sessions at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, 2005, 2006, in those areas as well.
Okay, and you mentioned subject control. Were there any other topics that you have taught?
Yes, obviously firearms, I refer to it more of a critical skills area, so that component of communication, driving, use of firearms, subject control, just a broad spectrum of the job, if you will.
And in addition to the certifications you spoke of, the force science and the Northwestern policing, have you completed any other advanced courses or certifications in regards to the use of force?
Just the Master Taser program.
And who is the, can you explain what the Master Taser program is?
I'm sorry. Yes, I think you've heard from the Axon rep. Axon is a parent company that manufactures our body cameras, our tasers, a bunch of different devices and equipment. So the Master program is an intensive week-long program where they take you through the history of the taser weapon systems, from the invention of them, every model that's still currently manufactured. While some agencies, currently we have the Taser 10, some agencies still have the Taser 7s, some have the X26s. So they take you through the history, the nomenclature, and you're required to understand how to operate, diagnose, train, and all of those areas, along with some skill building exercises. And then you have a bunch of written and practical exams at the end. And the concept is you're a master instructor, you can then anywhere in the country go teach a Taser class for an agency and certify instructors for that respective agency.
And are you familiar with Grand Rapids Police Department's policies on the use of force and practices and procedures?
I am, yes.
How did you become familiar with those?
Through being part of the training cadre. Historically, our agency has always had instructor development sessions or instructor days. So we discussed trends and policies and that. And then as I promoted up, it became more of a command level. That's historically how the chief's office and work groups get policy changes through by several different entities reviewing them within the agency.
And have you reviewed the specific sections of the policies that were in effect at the time of the incident involving Officer Schurr?
Yes.
April 4th of 2022?
Yes.
And Your Honor, this is marked as Defendant's Exhibit G, I believe. Oh, sorry, Defendant's Exhibit E is the Grand Rapids Police Department policies.
So E is all the policies. No objection, Your Honor. Apparently it's E 1 through 10 is what I'm understanding.
Yes, Your Honor, and these are the Grand Rapids Police Department policies, and it's E1 through E10. It includes the use of force, firearms.
Remember, the second expert witness, the final expert witness on the state side, testified that this was a witness that was testifying about standard police procedures throughout the nation, and said that the Grand Rapids police procedures complied with it or was consistent with it. But then the whole time said that this officer didn't apply standard police procedures, or generally accepted police procedures, I think is how they phrased it. So if this officer is going to say, if this captain's going to say he complied with them, which is what I think he said in the preliminary examination, then the jury's going to have a lot to work with, right? It's still so great. That's why I love this trial. It's so great.
Yeah, it's hard for me. It's very hard to see which way they are leaning, but I don't know what to say. The defense is doing a great job getting their guy convicted. Hey, thank you, Dolly. Gifting 2 memberships to Mod Princess and Hospice Yes.
There you go. I haven't seen Hospice Yes in a while.
No, with that kind
of.
I
haven't been streaming in a while, so.
No, you retired 2 years ago.
I did. I had enough with it after Crumbly.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I guess while we're doing this, we also have...
Oh, Dolly, another one. 3 new members. To Kelly.
It's Defendant's Exhibit F1 through 18.
Erin. Hi, Erin.
18.
And you said no objection to their. Right. And they are admitting at this time that 1 to 18.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Captain Cyber, how many times have you testified in court regarding GRPD matters?
Over the course of my career, I would estimate probably in the about 100 range, maybe.
And in those cases, who are you usually testifying for?
Many times for the city attorney's office here in GR, and then the county prosecutor's office as well.
All right. And at this point, have you had the opportunity to review the video footage from Officer Schurr's body camera and dash camera and the passenger cell phone video from the incident on April 4th?
Yes.
How many times would you say you've viewed those videos?
Prior to this week, through the trial, probably 12 to 15 times.
And do you feel familiar enough with the content of these videos to answer questions related to the training and policy topics involved in this incident?
Yes,
And have you reviewed the facts of this case?
I have.
And did you form any opinions regarding the use of force by Officer Schurr?
I have.
So you can't give opinion because he's not an expert.
I was going to move to qualify him as an expert at this time.
And that before he introduces his opinion.
Yeah, I was not going to ask him before the
if he ever given
if he had formed
opinion.
one. But at this point, we would move to have Captain Cyber recognized as an expert in the Grand Rapids Police Department training policies and procedures.
Just simply for Grand Rapids Police Department policies.
So he will be considered an expert.
Isn't he a bit biased if he's his direct supervisor?
Yes.
So he shall be.
Oh, don't
Well,
you have
he-
that rule in?
He definitely has a conflict of interest, right? Because
Yeah.
presumably there's civil suits here under a 1983 case. There would,
Yeah.
the department would be liable, and anything he says could be, well, I mean, it would. Yeah, there's a bias. There's not really a conflict. There's more of a bias. Like he has every incentive to testify favorably for this officer on those grounds. So, but that can be called into question. We'll see if on cross-examination they bring up a civil suit. You know, they could, in theory, do impeach this guy with. So
Considered an expert in that.
he's
Thank you,
he's
Anna.
being qualified as an
And Captain
expert
Cyber, can you
in
tell us a
Grand
little bit
Rapids
about
Police
your role at GRPD regarding policy review and analysis?
Yes. So like I explained a minute ago, as I promoted, especially since I took the lieutenant role in charge of the training unit and on my current captain position, yearly, roughly, we do policy reviews to keep up with national changes or court decisions that would affect our policies and procedures. We continually try to update our training materials, I guess, outlines every session, things like that.
And are you familiar with the GRPD's policies on the use of force?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I do have, I would ask for permission to publish a demonstrative that has Exhibit E, which is the GRPD policies on that.
How do you want to publish? I'm sorry.
Defendant's Exhibit E, but I put sections of them just for purposes of trying to go through them.
The ones that I just admitted?
Yes.
And yes, we may publish.
Okay. All right. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit, I kind of want to walk you through and have you help explain to the jury what Grand Rapids Police Department policy is on the use of force. So I'm going to kind of have you talk to us about that a little more.
Spreading the good news.
So I am showing you what is part of Exhibit E1. Can you explain a little bit, can you explain what GRPD relies on for their use of force policy and what that is?
Yes. The Supreme Court case, Graham versus Connor, is the basis, the framework for our policy, as you can see, the language in there.
There you go,
Reasonable amount of
cameraman.
force, reasonable threat of death or
Oh
suicide
my
by
God.
number 3. The fleeing felon, that's Tennessee versus Gardner case, but yeah, that's the framework for our use of force policy.
And how do you usually, I guess when you're talking about the Graham versus Connor, can you explain to the jury what you mean by that?
Yes. So the term objective reasonableness, which you can see that's highlighted there, some of the factors or things to take into account. The phrase
I don't know,
totality of
Derek.
circumstances, meaning the factors of that incident, that time done there. So you can see A through G, the immediate threat, safety of others, officers, and B and C, resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. D, the term again, a reasonable officer on the scene. So these are all factors kind of combined together as you work your way through the reasonableness of the force.
I'm sorry, this is a separate page.
Oh, sorry, Your Honor. This is policy 9-1.2, which is defendant's exhibit. It's still part of E1. It just doesn't.
It's like number 6 on this page.
Yes.
And then the other one was different.
Yeah. For the record, the first slide we discussed was the use of force, 9-1.1, which is exhibit E1, section 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you.
All right, and now we are talking about exhibit E1, 9-1.2, section 6. So you had talked a little bit about the objectively reasonable officer standard. How does this standard guide officers in how to make decisions in high stress situations?
Well, mainly that kind of boils down to a similar trained officer in a similar circumstance or similar situation. Would they perform the same way or in a similar way? That's kind of the easiest way to boil that down. And the big factor is hindsight 2020 can't be used in evaluating that use of force, right? The comfort of your desk or your office or your couch as you're watching that video.
Oh, Scott, I forgot about my emojis.
You can't have the hindsight 2020. You got to be able to articulate or look into it in that time.
I lefty.
And when you say that, does that mean you have to? Can you explain more what that means? Like, who are you supposed to be evaluating? What perspective are you supposed to be evaluating it from?
From the officer on the scene or a similar trained officer, right? Put yourself in that officer's position. You can kind of use a sports analogy, right? When we're yelling at the TV on a football game or a basketball with the Pistons last night, put yourself in that position. That 3-point shot.
The camera guy really thinks he is shooting a Michael Mann movie.
Safety of wherever. You've got to put yourself in that position. So exhaustion, you're tired, you don't know all these factors, the totality of the circumstances. It's an extensive list of things. You've got to be able to recreate that and put yourself in that situation or a similar trained officer as you're judging or evaluating that use of force.
And is that part of what you do?
Well, yeah.
It is. I'm responsible for use force analysis and reviews, and we average between 500 to 600 use forces a year in the last, for pretty much my entire career. So, yeah, I'm tasked with that. I'm part of the use force review board.
And you mentioned the totality of the circumstances. You started mentioning some of them, and I would direct your attention to Exhibit E1, Section 9-1.4 to 9-1.5, and this is Section D. And you started talking about some of these topics. Can you talk a little bit more?
Okay, what's going on? What are we doing? What are we doing?
What officers are trained to consider under the totality of circumstances.
Yes,
there's a lot of totality of
circumstances. It's the tangible facts.
No, I was at the phone call, so I wasn't listening to anything. But I'm looking at the cameraman, and he's like zooming into the badge, and I'm like, "What is he doing?"
Yeah, he thinks he's shooting a movie for Michael Mann.
I don't. He either has taken too much medication or not enough.
The tangible things in that instance. So. An easy one is size, right? Is the officer much smaller than the subject they're trying to arrest or fighting with? Exhaustion is on there. That has a huge bearing on use of force incidents, weather, distance from the subject, the type of crime. And then the last one, and this isn't a complete list, obviously there's other factors in play, but reaction time is a huge one because it's pretty well understood that action is usually faster than reaction. So again, sports analogy.
Yeah, they probably got like the local high school kid that films all the basketball games.
He's going to be able to do it with relative control. The batter's got to react to that. If it was easy, a batter would have 1,000% batting average. So same thing as an officer. They've got to pick up clues or cues ahead of time to try to give them some kind of a fair playing field.
And when you're talking about reaction time, is that something that's also trained to the officers?
It is.
And what are they trained about that?
Just to understand the concept that action is faster than reaction. So officers, for the vast majority of their daily activities, are behind the power curve, if you will. They have to react to other actions. Very rarely do officers take initial actions ahead of time. And I also point up number 5 there. The vast majority of use of forces, subjects or suspects are under alcohol or drug influence. That's a vast majority of our incidents.
And is that just like something that you train officers to look for?
Yeah, to recognize that some uses of force are not effective. For example, pepper spray. People that are intoxicated historically don't have, they aren't affected the way that a person that wasn't intoxicated might be by pepper spray. Or they're very resistant to pain because of the delayed response due to the intoxication or the drug induction.
And you mentioned like not viewing this from hindsight. How do you avoid doing a hindsight analysis when evaluating the use of force?
Personally, I will watch the video or videos start to finish, and then review the incident reports to try to gather some more information, and then I'll try to break down the video frame by frame, or I don't have forensic video equipment, but break it down through the software that I have available by piece by piece.
And as I guess when you're considering things from hindsight, are these some of the factors that you have to consider from the perspective of the officer
They
involved?
play a major role, yes.
And are officers trained with regard to the reaction time? Are they trained that they might have to make split-second decisions in tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving situations?
Yes, that's reinforced through training.
And how do you train officers to anticipate that?
The best way we try is through reality-based scenarios where we put them at a disadvantage and force split-second decisions to try to reinforce decision-making skills and try to give them some framework to understand, reasonable decisions or reactions off that.
Okay. And now you mentioned some of the reality-based scenarios. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those are?
Yes. So as men and women hire into the Grand Rapids Police Department, they do an 8-week in-house orientation, we refer to it as, where we start with very basic skills and then progressively make them more difficult scenarios. For example, we'll at some point at 8 weeks, we do a drill, kind of an exhaustion drill, if you will, where they're in a kind of sensory deprived. It's pretty simple design, but it's more or less a shower curtain that kind of comes over top of them. That's enclosed, and then they react immediately to something, and it's usually a violent assault. And the goal there is to get them exhausted, to have that understanding what that feels like, a 30 second to 1 minute scenario, because we found that if we go past that 1 minute, the injury rate gets pretty high. So that's one example. We also voluntarily expose the new recruits to a taser effect, a taser, either a drive stun or NMI, as you've heard, the probe, and then pepper spray. We also make them drive on a racetrack. So we try to expose them to everything we possibly can that they'll see out in the street or out in a real operational sense. And then once they get done that 8 weeks, they do 16 weeks of field training with somebody sitting next to them and evaluates everything they do, every call they go on, every stop they make, and it gets progressively harder. And the expectation is they have to do the whole 100% of the work by the end of that field training program. Then when they're done with that, we have between 8 to 10 mandatory training cycles a year that vary in topic to try to maintain skill sets and build skill sets.
And why do you have the new recruits go through all of these scenario-based trainings?
Just to give them a perspective of what, one, that time compressed decision making, that stress of having to make decisions in a split second. And then, like I said, to try to expose them to as much as we possibly can before they're subjected to it in a real life scenario. So the effects of pepper spray, what it feels like to be tased, what it feels like to be exhausted.
Sorry. I was editing
we
my
even have
emojis.
foot pursuit scenarios that we do with them. So they understand what that feels like or what that looks like. We really focus on communication skills. It's a whole list of things from A to Z.
Okay. And you mentioned that you ask people to be voluntarily tased and pepper sprayed. Why do you do that?
The biggest factor is so they understand the effects of it. One, for taser, for example.
Tedious. I wish they had a more entertaining way to get out the
it takes them
information
to
because it's
understand
not bad
that,
information.
to
it's
avoid
just tedious.
Excessive taser deployments or taser rides, if you will. Also for their own benefit to know if they were incapacitated or the pain associated with the drive stun. Also, pepper spray affects people differently. Some people have very little effects. Some people are completely kind of incapacitated by the effects of it. So just so they have that before they get out on the street in a real life operational sense, they've never been exposed to it.
Okay. And I'd like to pull up what I think has previously been published as the people's, actually, I'll just do it. So I will, would like to move to admit defendant's exhibit.
I'll have another beer.
I'm debating about a beer. It's 5 p.m. now.
It is 11 p.m. here. And I'm having a day off tomorrow because it is International Workers' Day tomorrow.
Hey, you guys got to burn the witches tomorrow.
The J and K, which are the videos of Officer Schurr being tased. Bob, can you pull up Exhibit K, please. Or sorry, J.
Oh, I gotta fix my little emoji.
Sorry, can you pull up Exhibit K?
Is that what you call it?
Aaron. No. That's my pet name for it. Aaron, since you're in and out, it looks like guilt to me, Aaron. So I don't know if you're still here, but it looks like it's going to be guilt. And then we'll see if the officer testifies.
This is defendant's exhibit.
Are we invited to Branca tomorrow morning as well to talk about it? Check with him,
sure.
because he might have a difference of opinion. That could be an interesting discussion before his stream starts.
It could be. I might have some work, but I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
I wanted to play this. Oh, never mind.
Oh, this again.
And is this the voluntary tasing that you had talked about?
Yes, it's consistent with what we do. And if you notice, the retired captain now that actually pays Officer Schurr, he's well within that 4-foot range. And we do this to demonstrate various effects of the taser, where we'll get a quote unquote proper spread of the probes to somebody. And then the next person, we might do a close probe deployment to show that, it's super painful, but there's varying effects to it. Or we might drive stun somebody, or we might do a third point of contact to create that lockup of the NMI. So that is consistent with what we do, yes.
And based on the close range that Officer Schurr was tased, how close do you think this would be?
It looks like he's probably within about 2 feet of where he sends the probes.
And based on that, how far would you anticipate that the probe spread would be?
That's a previous model. That's an X2 model that when Officer Schurr was hired, we were still carrying. So the previous model is a T7, but in that range, it's probably I would guess about a 6 to 7 inch spread from there.
Okay. And as part of the voluntary tasing, why? I mean, I guess you've explained why, but do you notice that with different people, their reactions are different depending on their size and body mass, distance?
Yes. And you can see we have to take precautions to, because if say Officer Schurr standing up, those two officers will be spotting him under his arms because of that concern of a fall hazard. So we vary the positions just to demonstrate effectiveness, or as you can see in that video, Officer Schurr is able to crawl a little bit, but he's obviously in intense pain.
Right. I got a new
without his arms being held, I don't know if he would have been able to move his arms or not. We get varying responses, like you said, by body size, ability. People react differently to being tased. That's for sure.
And have you ever been tased?
I have.
And what was that experience like for you?
Miserable. I will say miserable. I've been tased. Part of the instructor program, I think 3 times. I have not been tased by the Taser 10, thankfully. But it's I've had different reactions each time. That's the unique part about being tased is one time you may lock up and not say anything. You may scream, blood-curdling screams. You may flail your arms with that quote-unquote lock-up, the NMI. I've also been drive stunned 4 times. And that's, very intense pain, and I relate it to like being hit with a blowtorch.
They can ask the state's witness, Mr. Taser guy.
That many times?
You know that guy tases himself every night before he goes to bed. Loves him some taser.
Oh, I need to cut out the Taser guy's testimony because he is so happy.
Wait, did I
testifying about tasers?
I don't know if I got my short out. I might have gotten a short out with it.
It's also
and I made a Taser guide salesman song.
Yeah,
I just haven't put a video of it together. I will try to have that done by tomorrow.
And so we could do a demonstration, but we can't. So, so when you're teaching officers,
what a jab! We could do a demonstration, but we can't. Just so everybody knows, the defense actually asked court's permission to do a live taser demonstration in the courtroom, which would have been amazing, but the judge said no. So not only is she making a little jab at the judge for that, she's making a little quip towards the jury.
We would have demonstrated it for you, but we're not allowed to.
I would have loved that.
But it feels like to get tased. Are there any other things that you train them to think about when they're about to use a taser, or when they're about to use the taser?
Yes, and that's why we do a ton of reality-based scenarios. We have specific taser-based scenario drills we do because things are dynamic, right? They're fluid. They're not like that mat room or the taser video where everything's static and I'm going to stand here.
And then they walk into the magical closet, which is
try to
filled with love, eggs, and lube.
various different exercises to show, even though it might be a close probe spread, you could fire your other cartridge and get a lockup, or you could create a third point of contact by driving and touching that taser to the individual. So there's varying methods we try to reinforce that. There's a whole spectrum of issues with a taser at times, so to try to work through that.
And I would like permission to publish Defendant's Exhibit K. J.
So it's J.
Yeah, sorry. Defendant's Exhibit J. And you mentioned the close probe deployment. Is this what you were discussing?
Exactly, yeah. So Officer Schurr there is in very close proximity to it's just a leather wrestling dummy we use. So you can
It shoots out confetti to.
That's a limitation of training with tasers because of some of the dangers.
Oh!
Recreate some of it, but I can't have role players. That's so we use dummies and things like that don't move. But he deploys that taser from probably 6 inches away and then finds that third point of contact. The other option we've trained in is you fire the first set of probes, you get a close probe.
Yeah, would have been fun to watch
to make the connection, electrical connection.
And is there any, even though in some instances, if you're closer than 4 feet or the optimal distance, is there any prohibition on doing that?
No, that's really why we do these drills, just to give them some repetitions and a conditioned response, if you will, that in a dynamic fluid situation, that optimum distance isn't always possible.
And you also mentioned that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that last exhibit, was that the same taser model or was that?
That's the prior one, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The judge should not be asking questions. The judge is not the finder of fact.
Yeah.
End of story.
And that was the X2 model?
X2, yeah. The functionality is the same. It's just different cartridges and design of the device a little bit.
And does your training on the close probe deployment or the distance you need to be from the person, has that changed at all now that you've switched to the Taser 7?
In this case.
Or I guess at the time you were using
the Taser 7? No, it did not change anything.
And you also mentioned that sometimes you...
you know what? Wendy asked this question yesterday. I didn't have an answer. I posed it to Bronca earlier today, and he said, his opinion, legally speaking, that would get the defendant off the hook criminally, but it would hold the department civilly liable.
Yeah.
So that was his legal analysis of that question. So
yeah, so it's a double-edged sword for the department. How much do they want to defend him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they defend him too well, they might be liable for his mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword for this captain right now. Captain? Yeah, he's captain. So that was interesting. We discussed it a little bit on Andrew's channel.
Have people voluntarily try pepper spray?
Yes, we I won't say mandate, however, strongly encourage people, unless they're prior law enforcement somewhere else in Lateral. But again, for the same concept of experience what that feels like. Your eye ducts kind of shutting down and watering and the physiological
because she would be the
if somebody's never been pepper sprayed, they don't know what the response is.
And that's for the hearing.
Completely shut down. Can't really fight through it. Other people, it doesn't affect them at all. So
you should not be asking.
That's kind of the first step, because in the course of your duties, pepper spray has some residual effects on us too.
Take care, Fubar.
And are you aware if Officer Schurr has been pepper sprayed?
He was, yes.
Back in a few days. Where are you going?
Your Honor, I would have permission to publish the People's Exhibit 12. I think it's the graduation video.
He is out celebrating May 1st, the International Workers' Day.
In Australia?
With red banners and marching and...
It used to be a day of celebration of the burning of witches. Now it's turned into some communist festival.
Yeah, we can play it and then I might turn stop it. Thank you.
All right, here, guys. Oh, God. We don't need the sound. We don't need the sound. This is Highway to the Danger Zone.
Yeah, we don't need a copyright claim.
Yeah. I did put it in my short though. I posted yesterday, and I did post your the video from the taser guy just now, the short. So if you guys want to see that on my channel, it's like 30 seconds of us dancing to the song on the live stream from yesterday.
He is so happy.
He loves talking about tasers.
Yeah.
So what they're showing here is the graduation video that was put together.
Yeah,
for the record, this is the People's Exhibit 12 at the 53-second mark. And you, haven't ever you noticed? Can you explain? Do you know why
Yes.
Officer Schurr looks like his eyes?
Yes. So typically, when we expose our newer officers to pepper spray, we're out at our outdoor range. Then it prevents our instructors from getting the feedback as well. So we'll spray one side of their face, have them close one eye, and spray one side they elect to uncover. And then we give them a little bit of physical training type, some jumping jacks, push-ups to get the breathing up, because some guys will hold their breath, or some folks hold their breath, try to gain it. And then we make them perform some simple strikes, kicks, punches, those kind of things on the training dummies, just to demonstrate to fight through the effects. And like I said, some of our folks really can't. Some people, like you see, Officer Schurr is doing his best to get through that, and he's got some involuntary closure of his other eye. So he's experiencing full value, it appears.
And when you, I guess, expose them, depending on their reaction, are officers required to use OC spray if they have a bad reaction to it?
In the field, you mean? Or
yeah.
No, they're not required.
And you also mentioned.
Ask him about using it so close, because remember that expert said he should have used OC spray. He's like, but they're like 3 feet away. He would have gotten sprayed in his own eyes. How is that? Ask the question, please. Ask the question.
That you had been drive stunned in the past. Have you also been pepper sprayed?
Yes.
Would you say that the drive stun is the equivalent of pepper spray?
I would not.
Why not?
The drive stun's you've heard the concepts of pain compliance with some of these techniques, the kicks and punches, and some of these techniques. The goal is to inflict some kind of a pain to gain compliance. And I relate the drive stun is the most intense pain compliance option, device, tool that I've ever felt. So pepper spray is nowhere near. It's uncomfortable and it takes longer to decontaminate and it has some longer effects, but the drive stun is much worse.
And have you ever trained officers to spray pepper spray, or how do you train them to use the pepper spray when they're using it on someone else?
When we set up scenarios specifically where we want to try to elicit a pepper spray response,
this is not a pepper spray scenario.
It's where somebody's not obeying verbal commands. They're seated. You have some distance because, like I said, you'll get some residual splashback, if you will. You get some pepper spray back at you. So if I'm in close proximity to somebody, I pepper spray them. I'm going to get the full effect as whatever that person's getting, and anybody else around. So it's really designed in its best application to be a distance type tool.
Do you ever train officers to spray it towards themselves?
No.
Why not?
Because they'll most likely suffer the effects of it.
Get to it.
And what would
spray it on food?
I guess what is the risk?
Oh, I mean, you could see
you have it on
the
your
training video,
tacos.
on the graduation video from Officer's class. He took one side of the spray. He's got one eye closed, and he's still suffering effects in both eyes. So without being able to shield one of my.
Bronca thinks it's self-defense. We did a stream with him last week, and then Nick and I were on a little bit this morning with him, and Bronca thinks it's clear self-defense. And that's why Nick was talking about, it'd be interesting to listen to him tomorrow and see what he has to say, or go join him a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, shield one.
Reading law by the letter. Yeah. This could be self-defense. Problem is you have video.
Yeah, and it looks really bad. We're going to see it here in a minute, I'm sure.
My eyes, excuse me, there's a chance I get it both my eyes and then have double the effect of it. The other issue is the design of the device. Can I show mine, I guess, for the jury? That's right, but just to show you the canisters that we carry and have carried for years has a thumb device in it, so it'd be very awkward and odd to try to get my thumb in and point it back at me. Right, so we instruct to use your thumb to spray it, not your finger. So that would be the other preclusion of pointing back at me.
Okay. And where is the pepper spray located on your duty belt?
In front of whatever dominant side you have, if whatever hand you write with. I'm a right-handed person, so I have it on my right hand in front of my gun.
And is that where? Do you know if that's where, or do all officers carry the pepper spray there?
The vast majority do.
Okay.
whatever their strong or dominant side is.
And are there any issues with trying to use the pepper spray if you're at the optimal distance? Is it effective on everyone?
No. I think I mentioned earlier, historically, people that are intoxicated or under the influence of narcotics, a lot of mental health type crisis, people that are affected by that, it has very little effect or no effect. There's also some outside kind of norm folks that just don't have any effect to it, whether they're
Take care,
stoned or
Aaron.
not.
And in your experience, does it typically work to on certain people who may be intoxicated?
With limited success in my operational use, I guess.
Mr. Becker, if you would want to clean the rest out.
I just want to turn this down just in case the song gets picked up by the YouTube gods and they play Radioactive.
And then if you could switch it back to Mr. McFarland's computer.
So
And when you were talking about the drive
yeah,
stun,
he should have used the pepper spray.
you mentioned you had been drive stunned multiple times.
Yes.
And have you ever trained officers, or would you equate the drive stun potentially to the eye as equivalent of a thumb?
No.
Why not?
I guess I would say a thumb, you'd have to know kind of how to inflict that damage to the eyeball, or that electricity coming off the end of the model of taser. Again, like I said, I relate it from my experience of being drive stunned 4 times like a blowtorch. So I don't personally want to have anything in my eyeball. I would think it's going to cause a lot more damage, but I'm not a doctor. So.
And without getting too much, what do you train, or how do you train officers to use the taser?
To use the taser? Like in the video, for example, that drill that Officer does during his recruit class, close probe deployment, where you fire the taser, activate it, fire the probe trigger from any distance, and then you know that you've got a short probe spread, so you follow up with that third point of contact, or fire the other set of probes into the person at some point, because then that would give you the distance you need between the probes. We've never taught to remove your cartridges to affect a drive stun. That's just not in our training philosophy or program at all. So we've always
No. You got to aim away from the eye, Justin.
The only thing we talk about is the older models, especially, they had what they refer to as blast doors on the front of the taser device. So the probes are not super long, so sometimes those probes will get impaled in the blast doors, and then it wouldn't give you any impact to the person. So we've always
Blast
taught
doors.
like try to get 6 inches
Okay.
before you pull that trigger.
Talking about an older model. I don't know why that's
follow up with somewhere else either.
And are there any locations that you train officers to avoid when using the taser?
Yes.
That
Early
was
on
when
in taser
the
days,
tasers came with the
the dark
vehicle.
concept wasn't around, but then after several litigation cases, they changed that so that they've asked us to avoid that center mass kind of chest area. And it's always been preferred that back or legs, large muscle group areas. And we've always instructed that to avoid the neck, face, genital areas, chest area as of late, obviously, but just because of the danger of probes going to those sensitive areas.
And do you also train them not to target those areas with the drive stun?
Yes.
And regarding how you train, kind of going back now to some of the use of force training and some of the policies, what standards in Michigan govern how police officers use force?
Obviously, we talked about the U.S. Supreme Court case, Graham versus Connor, but then obviously we follow Michigan law.
This works.
Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, any of their case law or decisions that come out.
When you say Sixth Circuit case law, are you referring to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals? That
Yes,
includes
sorry,
Michigan,
yes.
Ohio.
Yes,
Tennessee,
Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky. Yes, so throughout the year, their cases come down. We have legal reviews or legal updates.
You know that was the Sixth Circuit?
And as cases come down, we try to glean information to if it has
No,
opposite
states.
impact on our day to day.
He just named the states under the Sixth Circuit.
Yeah, that's the Sixth Circuit, the Federal Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
So each justice, there's like 9 circuits, and each justice gets a circuit. And then, so we're in the 6th Circuit, which is out of Cincinnati. So if I'm admitted to practice there, and whenever I file federal appeals, if I have to do oral arguments, I got to go down to Cincinnati. But it covers Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan. And then if like the 6th Circuit differs with the 9th Circuit, then the U.S. Supreme Court could step in because there'd be a circuit split. That's what they're talking about if you ever hear circuit split.
And in Grand Rapids, GRPD use of force policy and all of the policies implemented, is GRPD required to follow Michigan law? And
Yes.
what other, and you mentioned, I think that Graham versus Counter is also incorporated throughout the policy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is GRPD required to follow South Carolina, Florida, or New Mexico law?
No.
Is that incorporated anywhere in the GRPD policies or training?
Oh, now
No,
they're putting
yeah,
shade on the
it's,
state's expert who
instances
is
around the
not
country pop up or happen.
knowledgeable about Michigan law.
Trying to glean information off that, trends, concerns, those kind of things. But
And
no,
both
not-
of them were from like
policies
out
versus
west, so they're not.
And why
even-
is that? Why do you?
Not even in the,
just to try to learn, and because as we sit here right now, men and women are out answering 911 calls, doing the daily duties of police work. So it's imperative that we stay up on it and try to identify training needs or concerns or things that we're seeing as trends happen across the country.
And yesterday we heard from some of the prosecution's experts, and I think there was some mention of consent decrees that were entered, I believe from New Mexico. Is the Grand Rapids Police Department trained on or required to follow any consent decrees from other states?
No.
And is GRPD required to, or do they implement the International Chiefs of Police policy guidance into their policy?
No, I'm actually a member of the ICP and I follow the publications, but no.
And at some of the references to their policy, it was referenced as a policy guidance. Does that mean that GRPD is required to implement those policies?
No.
And you were here yesterday, and I believe, did you hear the testimony by Professor Stoughton and Mr. Bloomfield?
I did.
And did you hear them talking about this officer-created jeopardy theory?
Yes.
And
what's the objection? Okay, so I know what the objection is. So this officer is qualified for Grand Rapids police procedures, and they're asking him to pontificate about the general police tactic experts that were called, and therefore, because he's not qualified under general policing qualifications or general policing tactics, then he can't testify in opposition to the other experts. I bet you that's what the objection is.
Yeah, and he wasn't pre-planned as an expert, I believe. So this is
I think
so. Him listening in he was listening in as a normal witness, but all of a sudden he is a.
No, if he was listening in, then it was intended that he was going to be called as an expert witness.
Yeah.
The problem is that he's qualified as an expert only with regard to Grand Rapids police tactics, not general police tactics, right? So that's probably the objection, and the judge will probably side with the state because that's what the judge has been doing. You can speed up a touch here. Oh, I have no sound. Turn the sound on. Oh my God, what is this cameraman doing? He's insane.
They should drug test the camera.
I don't think I'm going to go there tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, if it is closing arguments, you want to be streaming.
Yeah. I was originally going to go there because it's only an hour and a half away, but I'm not going to.
It seems like this is the defense final witness. It should
Final
be weird
witness?
unless the defendant.
I need to hear from the defendant. If I'm sitting in on that defense team, I'm like, this guy needs to testify. Unless there's something that they know that I don't know.
Yeah.
But my understanding is this guy has a very clean record. He's been given awards for foot chases, and there's nothing in his path. So given that, unless they ran him through some mock testimony and he came off really bad, I feel like he needs to testify. So it sounds like defense is withdrawing the last question. So
But then again, I mean, cop awards are, I mean, they awarded the more or less everybody involved in the Delphi trial.
Yeah, I know. Cop awards are BS. But that being said, I still think if he's got a clean record, if they don't have any, if there's no complaints, if he hasn't been disciplined, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like if he doesn't have any of that, then there's no past that could be brought up.
Yeah.
Aaron Hack, I'm a member again. Yes, you are.
I withdraw my last question. Based on some of the generally accepted police practice that you heard Professor Stoughton and Mr. Bloomfield testify about yesterday, are those all consistent with what GRPD trains our officers to do?
Could you rephrase that? Sorry. It seems like a broad, in what? Police practice, I guess.
During the testimony from Professor Stoughton and Mr. Bloomfield, there were some tactical suggestions that they talked about regarding foot chases. Is that consistent with how Grand Rapids trains their police officers on solo foot pursuits if there is another occupant in the vehicle? Is there anything that prevents or prohibits that at GRPD?
No.
How are officers trained to handle solo foot pursuits?
Depending on the situation, biggest thing is to get radio traffic out that you're in a foot pursuit and evaluate the factors there and then execute.
And is there any GRPD policy that prohibits an officer from pursuing a suspect or person when there is another occupant in the car?
No.
And I think we touched on this a little bit, but following up on what some of the testimony was yesterday from Professor Stoughton and Mr. Bloomfield, is they talked a little bit about the taser closed probe deployment. Is there anything at GRPD that prohibits officers from using closed probe deployment?
No.
Wait, what?
And
a lot of and-ums.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. Could you explain to the jury how GRPD officers are trained to assess actions by arrestees?
Yes. One of the first things we try to reinforce with newer officers is visual cues. Obviously, watching hands, waistline area. It's a well-known fact that
if he refuses to obey direct commands, do you walk up to him?
Watching hands, if they're trying to access a weapon or a firearm as you're approaching them, that's some of the biggest concerns. Watching for some nonverbal cues, if they refuse to look at you, if they're kind of looking for an avenue to escape. Establish some kind of verbal dialogue with them, whether that's commands or directives, and gauge some compliance or lack thereof as you're approaching. There's multiple factors, but those are some of the kind of first ones.
Okay. And if I could have Bob pull up the PowerPoint that has Defendant's Exhibit E, which includes the GRPD policies.
And now we get to policies.
Thank you.
I still say if the prosecution is going to rebut this, all they need to do is play the video side by side.
9-1.3 to 9-1.4, Section 2.
Yeah.
Are these some of the available responses that you were discussing?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about some of the responses available and some things that you train officers to look for. And what is the officer's, when can an officer use these types of responses?
Well, the first one, A, their officer presence, verbal direction, that's pretty much immediate. When you arrive on scene, you effect a stop, you make a contact, like I am here, full uniform, clearly marked as a police officer. And then establishing some kind of verbal direction, right? Stop, hey, come over here, get back in the car, get out of the car. Those are simple verbal directions. So that's the first step. And that kind of gives you an idea as you're visually kind of identifying and gauging compliance off that verbal direction. And then just working on that list, I refer to it as physical controls, where you're actually grabbing or trying to establish some kind of physical control where you're grabbing onto them. That would be, under B there, soft, empty hand. And then it progresses down from there.
And this is a continuation of that. So this is Defense Exhibit E1 9-1.4. Can you talk through some of the available options?
Yes. So as you saw on the first page, this is just the second series of options as you escalate in your use of force, or the force you tried to affect wasn't successful, right? So the top one, physical controls, I just said that, but that really is any type of you're trying to grab onto them. So now you're into some kind of strike, a kick, a punch, and you can see the sentence up there that reasonably believes that soft deadly hand controls will be insufficient to establish control and the use of deadly force not justified. And then the next step is intermediate control. So kind of commonly refer to that as our tools, right? Impact, your baton. If you're equipped with less lethal munitions, which the vast majority of patrol officers aren't. And then the electronic control devices, tasers. So again, it has that language in there where you could move to that level, intermediate control before, after you can establish that lower levels of force have been ineffective, or you reasonably believe. So going back to that, to totality of circumstances or the factors, right?
Sorry, guys. I've been trying to work a little bit while we've been doing all this. I see everybody new coming in. But hey, welcome. So if you're not familiar with this, oh no, Cindy, you've been watching. Did you make it down to the protest, Cindy? That's what I want to know. Oh, where are the pictures? Tag me on X with those pictures. There's been protests in favor of the cop outside the courthouse, apparently, the last few days. So that's been entertaining. Did he accidentally pull the trigger? Well, the taser expert testified that you can accidentally pull the trigger, that you can undo the safety. We know the officer undid the safety in order to engage it the first time, and that seemed to be deliberate. It went off another time after that, and it could have been done accidentally because there's two buttons on the side that if you just squeeze the thing, it would go off. Presumably the safety was already off and not turned back on. So yeah, it could have been. And I believe the second one was accidental while they were both struggling for it. So
size is a huge one, right? So if I'm an officer that's 5 foot, 100 pounds, and the subject I'm dealing with is 6'4" and 280, we don't expect them to go hands on with them. They could escalate to a taser device, maybe.
Oh, you work. That's disappointing.
A bigger officer may have to actually physically.
You got to feel the commitment from you, Cindy.
Makes sense.
Yes, I'm sorry, I jumped out of order here a little bit. I'm now showing what's Exhibit E1, Section 9-1.2, and it says number 7, 8, 9, and 10. So can you explain a little bit about what the officer's response is, what they're responding to?
Yeah, so that just kind of clarifies what we expect of our people, right? To gain control of the subject, they're trying to either take into arrest or detain for an investigation or just general public safety. So that just defines what a response is. And then again, we go back to the reaction time. It's fairly understood that it takes some time. Your brain's going to initiate an activity, but it isn't an immediate. Right? It takes some time to actually initiate that activity or that response you want to do. And it just goes in there, and then at the bottom, a duty to intervene. That's clearly in our policy that we have.
I think this is all foundational stuff. I think what they're going to get to is they're going to say, this is all the stuff that you need to do. And then they're going to say, all right, you reviewed the video.
And now,
based on all this
E1,
information you gave us in the video you reviewed, was this officer acting within the
Can you talk a little bit about
guidelines? He's going to say yes.
What the officer's use of force
Tedious.
is generally based on.
But I think that's where it's going.
That language in there, it's just kind of a guideline.
It seems logical to me. I don't know what
to explain what that looks like. So inactive resistance, you can see in the
I mean, it's so tedious, but I think it needs to be done this way.
Looking for an avenue of escape. Those are what you could see and understand.
More excitement.
The inactive resistance just gives it kind of a rough phrase there. Then you work down the passive resistance. That's kind of commonly referred to as like a protest or dead weight.
Yeah,
like stand up,
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Actively, and they're passively resisting. They won't react to verbal commands. And then it progresses.
Again,
down,
I'm basing it only off of what I heard during the preliminary
examination.
I mean, things change, right? So
you're pulling away. Then active aggression and assault, you're striking them, you're wrestling with them or tussling. That seems to be a common phrase. Grabbing onto the officer, grabbing their equipment.
I got you. I give you credit. You were typing as I was talking.
And we already talked about the officer's available responses in 9-1.3 and 9-1.4. But just to clarify, so that the level of control used by the officers is that typically based on what the person's actions are?
Yes, with the caveat, I think you said it in a couple of them, that we don't have to progress through each one to jump to another one or we don't have to wait to be punched to do ABC kind of thing. I don't have to wait to be shot to use that.
I like this layout, Nick.
So it's all based upon, again, that objective reasonable standard.
I like this layout.
An officer in a similar situation.
Yeah, so this is good.
It just spells out.
Is this one that I had set up, or did you do it?
No, this is yours.
And how do you train officers
know I had
account
it.
for or incorporate the decision-making options when they're in a situation?
Yeah, we really focus on that reasonableness. There's more than one way to do it. It doesn't have to be perfectly right. It has to be reasonable with that information they had in that time-constricted decision-making process, recognizing that decisions take time to actually initiate. So you see it commonly where maybe the subject's facing me, and then as I initiate that action, they're faced away from me. So it looks like I hit them in the back. Or
I'm going to get these super
but
tips
as I
that
initiated that
Once
activity,
Every
they're
Kid
facing me.
has.
So that's kind of the reaction time. We understand that.
And what are some of the challenges that officers might face to make slow or analytical decisions during use of force incidents?
Like we've talked about here, the reaction time, right? They're usually reactive in nature. You don't have full, complete information. You're going off of your training and experience or reasonable decisions at that point, or what you can kind of, those factors that totality of the circumstances. So if a subject's acting like they're armed, they're doing what we refer to as security taps, where they subconsciously tap their waistline where a weapon might be secreted. That's a reasonable response for me to key in on that and think that they're armed, right? Or they blade away, where they move their body position away from me. Like as you're standing at me, if I put my right hip or right side to you, I've bladed away from you to conceal my weapon. So those are clues or cues that we try to train our folks in, and we expose them to in scenarios to pick up on that, to start that decision-making process. And then we recognize that we try to give them some kind of parameters, and they operate in those parameters, and we constantly coach and train.
And Nick's.
And how does the training account for an officer's reliance on like intuition or experience in these split-second moments?
They get quicker with recognizing threats or cues, or clearly a brand new officer, unless they've got vast life experience reading people, don't pick up on the clues that somebody with 10, 12, 15 years on the job was going to until they've been exposed to that, right? Where you may give somebody 2 arms length distance away as I'm speaking with you, and then you're in 3 foot pursuits because they can pick up that you don't know they're going to run. So then all of a sudden you close that gap a little closer to be able to grab onto them. Things like that, where you allow somebody to move a little further, then you're involved in some foot pursuits, and you learn pretty quick that, oh wait, he's probably going to run or she's going to run. So I close that gap a little quicker. So it just speeds up the decision making as they get more experience and more training and more repetitions.
And
looking for condition
right
responses,
back,
if that makes sense.
Yep.
And why is that important?
Like I said at the beginning, we try to train the men and women to have been exposed to the vast majority of things we possibly can before they see them in an operational sense. And obviously there's limits. We can't do everything, but a conditioned response to an input is much better than I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm going to go off the fly. If that makes sense.
And when you are training officers in these scenario-based situations, are they, and like we saw with the taser exposure, are they usually in very controlled situations where?
No, starting, if you think of the concept, crawl, walk, run, we like to use that, right? So week 1 through 4 of recruit in-house is going to be pretty static, right? We're going to teach them skill sets, drills to reinforce positive reaction, and then we turn the dial up, if you will, the pressure up, where now it's much more dynamic. So that dummy that maybe he's doing a close probe deployment on now is a moving role player in a suit, and he may move as that taser goes, or those kind of scenarios where we run and we get foot pursuits and we fight back. And so we try to turn the stressors up as much as we can without injuring the new officers or the role players.
And as part of the training, I guess just finishing up some of the policy stuff. Once an officer, and I'm sorry, for the record, I'm showing what's Defendant's Exhibit E1, Section 9-1.4. Once an officer makes the decision to use deadly force, are they required to try other options?
No.
Why not?
If the situation, that officer has deemed that situation has resulted in they're going to elect to use deadly force, they need to stop that threat in an immediate sense. So lower levels of force have a very less likelihood of becoming successful, especially if you've escalated through multiple options of force and now you're at a deadly force encounter. Like we've talked about, the time constricted decision making, exhaustion, various factors are going to have an impact in that. So deadly force, there's not time to go back to other options.
And are there some instances where it would be reasonable for an officer to go directly to deadly force without having to try any of the lower options?
Yes.
Can you give an example of when that might be?
Yeah, for example, I try to stop somebody here right outside the courthouse on Ottawa, somebody walking on the street. As I go to make contact with them, hey, stop for a second. They spin, they produce a firearm. I don't have to try to use empty hand tactics or anything else. I can immediately pull my firearm and defend myself.
And once an officer decides to use deadly force, are they, I may have said this a little bit already, but are they required to use a different force option before they resort to their firearm?
No.
And once they decide to use their firearm, can you explain how you train officers to use their firearm once they've decided that deadly force is necessary?
Yeah, so we do usually 3 to 4 times a year. Besides scenario-based stuff, we actually do firearms training with different weapon systems, different drills, whether it's standard marksmanship, point shooting, close quarter battle type drills where you're very close to targets. There's a whole multitude of training that goes into the use of firearms. And then in realistic based scenario training, we have the option of using training devices so we can role players can recreate deadly force encounter, and the officer going through can deliver deadly force without injuring the party.
You have been trying to use my voice for years.
Yeah.
Trying a Swedish accent. Yeah, now you know.
I'm showing you what is marked as Defendant's Exhibit E2. Firearms Procedure 9-2.2.
You have to.
Can you?
You have to talk as if you had large genitalia.
Yeah, clearly says right, fear for the safety of the officer, safety of others. So, easy example of that is frequently we had break-ins around.
Now, for the rest of you, you have to pretend.
But at 2 a.m., the officers are authorized to pull their firearms as they clear that structure or begin to clear that structure.
And once officers decide to use deadly force, now I'm showing Defendant's Exhibit. This is still E2 9-2.1. When can an officer discharge a firearm?
So it starts with a reasonable threat of death or serious bodily injury to yourself, another citizen, or another officer, and then to prevent the escape of a inherently violent felon.
Camera guy really.
This
is the lowest bidder.
Or officers.
Hey,
and when you are training them on how to use the
firearm,
where do you train them to?
Yeah, so kind of a misconception, unfortunately, is shoot to wound. We train to stop the threat, and we teach to shoot center mass because that's the largest target area that people have. So upper chest, upper back, those areas we don't train to shoot limbs or shoot the gun on somebody's hand because the likelihood of success is not very high. So that, in its easiest explanation, is the preferred target areas for. But like I said, some of the drills, it's point shooting, if you will, where you're drawing your firearm under stress and you're firing rounds at a target. So you're not actively aiming your firearm, if that makes sense. You're not, looking through your sights, developing a sight picture, taking your time. It's under duress, under stress, and you're just trying to get a response out right away.
And I think you mentioned close quarter battle.
Yeah, they don't talk about hours yet, right?
Sorry,
we haven't heard how many hours they're training.
All that means is that threat is probably within arm's reach of me. So my arms are almost 3 feet long, probably. So that arm distance away from me, it's a very close-up threat. I don't have time, right, to create distance or put something between us. I've got to immediately defend myself or another. So we've gone through this for years now of draw your firearm. And obviously I can't extend it because I'm going to be presenting that to them. So I'm going to keep that firearm close to me and point shoot. And with the cycle of our handguns, the chance, so not that this is a firearms lesson, but we have a semi-automatic handgun. So as I pull that trigger, there's a top part, a slide that will cycle and come back. If I'm too close to my clothing, and we're in Michigan, so we're in heavy clothing 8 months of the year, I feel like, I've got to keep that slide away from me. So we teach to put the bottom of that firearm, the magazine that the rounds or the bullets are in, against our rib cage and shoot from here. So it gives me a little standoff distance, and it also prevents a malfunction of my firearm, if that makes sense. So that's a standard kind of close quarter battle drill we do, or close quarter combat drill we do at the range. And that's a very static in the sense of I'm standing in front of a paper target, and I'm doing that. Due to safety and concerns for injury to my role players and instructors and cops, I can't really recreate those drills very well in training. There's some products out there that you kind of use, but it doesn't give you the same feel. So it's really hard to replicate that in a dynamic training scenario, if that makes sense.
And you mentioned something, I think, that it would be ineffective or something in certain circumstances. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Did you say something about it being ineffective at certain, using it in a certain manner when you're doing that?
Just more of a concern of creating a malfunction myself. So if I bring that firearm in front of myself, the slide could impact me or hit my vest and not cycle properly. So as you pull your trigger, a bullet goes, that round ejects out and new round feeds in. So if it doesn't cycle properly, you've got a one shot and that's it. So that's why we really focus on bringing that firearm up, kind of that rib cage area up here, to prevent any kind of malfunction.
But he didn't have it in his rib cage area. He pulled
He had
it
it on his
against
belly.
the neck.
Well,
I mean,
were you talking about the gun or the taser?
no, the gun.
Oh, yeah. Well,
One of the things
I
that
mean,
we haven't
his
talked
ribcage
about
was
yet, and
facing the ground.
I'm showing what is marked as defendant's exhibit as part of E1, and this is 9-1.6. And this is also talking about the authorized use of force. But can you tell us a little bit about the verbal directives that are mentioned? What are in number E4? Can you explain what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, whenever reasonably possible, officers shall provide verbal directives before deadly force is used.
Whenever possible.
I like to tell our newer
I don't
officers
think it's
that's
possible.
for example, you're in a traffic stop, you've got multiple people in the car, and you see somebody reaching for a firearm. That's a proper time to tell them, don't reach that firearm, I'm going to shoot you. Right? A directive could be stop, drop it. It's a direction, not necessarily a warning. And when feasible, under life-threatening stress, time-compressed decision-making, exhaustion, some of those, when feasible, it doesn't really make sense. It's not practical.
And with this verbal directive, does it require you to say like stop or I'll shoot?
No.
That's all the policy stuff that I have for you for now. Sorry to bored everyone. But all right, so we talked a little bit about your training and the in-house training. You've talked a lot about kind of how you train officers to be prepared for the use of force encounters in the real world through the scenario-based and the field training. One of the things that it seems like is kind of ingrained throughout this is that a lot of the responses are up to the officer's discretion. Can you explain why that is?
That we don't want to limit telling our men and women there's one response to that input or that stimulus or that situation, because it's just not practical. Like I explained, size of the officer, their ability. Clearly, I'm not a young man anymore, right? So if it's a 25-year-old officer compared to almost 50, right? There's physical skill differences there or experience. So we try to give them parameters, if you will, and to operate within inside those. So their decision doesn't have to be perfectly right. It just has to be reasonable for that situation and circumstance.
And if one officer would do something one way, but another officer might do it a different way, does that make it unreasonable?
No.
Why not?
Like I said, size, skill.
I don't know.
And again, I use the term
He's young.
If
I mean,
I explain
He's
what I saw,
33,
what I felt,
but not
why I
too
did what
young.
I did, then maybe it looks different than me watching it. Right? Like you can't be in somebody's mind to know what they saw, what they thought, what they experienced. You know, videos give you a perspective, but not living through the moment.
And you mentioned that officers' reactions are not meant to be perfect.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, just are they reasonable? Keep coming back to the term. Are they reasonable for that situation? So yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, and we constantly review and coach and mentor and train to try to perfect that craft, if you will. But again, we don't expect perfection. It's just got to be reasonable because they don't have the luxury of having all the time in the world to make a decision, come up with a tactical plan, and have every asset and resource available before they initiate that plan. They've got to make split-second decisions under a lot of times serious stress and with a lack of information.
And is there ever one right option?
No.
I think you've explained, but why not?
Yeah, just going back to that last answer, there's variable factors to it. You know, the officer, their experience, their what they recognize as a threat, where one might not. There's just a multitude of factors.
He looks like
and
the
that's why we
guy.
don't bracket people down one way, one track, because it's not practical.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you saw that one too. I was just pulling that up. Yeah, this is dull.
All right, and
Yeah, we know, and folks, we already sped it up. We have sped it up, right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I mean, we can speed it up faster. We'll do 1.5. So, National Center for Police Defense has a bio on Chris, but it doesn't. There's a picture of him and a girl, but it doesn't say he's married or has kids.
3:15, you're not going to be time for the afternoon break? Go to the client.
Oh, thank God we get an afternoon break. We're going to get more interesting. I'm sorry. This defense attorney, she's a dud. She's the one that gave the opening statement too.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mind her opening statement, but could have been a lot better. Okay.
All right, they're going to be on break.
Oh no, is it still being on after the break?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's still on. They just took a break.
Yeah. I need to visit the big boys' room.
I need to visit something. He's on the rest of the day. This is what we get, folks. We got another hour of this guy. We're going to do 1.5.
all right, Captain Cyber, I would like to kind of walk through some of the training that Officer Schurr received and how it has been applied in this situation. Bob, can you please pull up Defendant's Exhibit B, which is the sync video with the transcript?
See, this is the important stuff. Everything else we did was foundational. If I had known, I should have watched it ahead a little bit, and we could have.
And before we play the video, I just kind of, could you explain to the jury kind of some of the things that you train officers to do when conducting a traffic stop?
More foundational stuff.
One of the biggest things is get radio traffic out as soon as possible. Because there's a lot, as you can see in the body camera of Officer Schurr, he's got a computer by him, a radio, he's got to operate the vehicle, turn the emergency equipment on. So try to get radio traffic out as soon as possible because pulling a traffic stop is an unknown risk. You don't know, again, you're back at that reactive point of their actions. So first thing is radio traffic. Simple as, the description of the vehicle, license plate, location you're at. If you can tell them the occupants are in it. And then activate your emergency equipment and then approach the vehicle once it comes to a stop.
Okay. And Bob, if you could play the video, start playing the video through RFN 1246.
We'll make the video bigger.
Oh, it's that one again. Maybe this time we can see when he actually turns on the lights.
Okay.
I see it as he turns. That car is already stopped when he turns on the lights.
Yeah, so this is a big contention for Nick and I because the testimony, whether you want to believe it or not, from the passengers that the vehicle was having issues, and Lyoya pulled over and got out to check on the vehicle, and while the officer was also simultaneously conducting a stop. So our question has always been, why did he get out of the car? Because you're not supposed to do that, at least not in Michigan. And the officer, though, would be justified still in being a little concerned because the guy immediately gets out of the car. The officer doesn't know why, so it's not really relevant, but we were just trying to figure out when he turns the lights on.
Well, there is speeding up to catch up.
Yeah, right there. So the lights turn on right when the beep goes.
Yeah, I think he
was already, seems like he was already pulling over.
Yeah.
Right? Let's back up one more time. Looks like he's already pulling over when the lights come on.
Yeah.
This is just mainly for our edification at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the grace and
And he is out of the car before the car is out of the car. So he's actually not disobeying order. He's already on his way
back
out.
up a little bit through when, and we've talked about this a little bit, but there's no sound in the beginning. What does that mean? Why is that?
Yes, our obviously Axon, the symbols in the top right, same manufacturer's taser, our in-car video and our body camera. So there's automatic built-in delay of 30 seconds. So there's automatic activations. So when Officer Schurr activates his emergency lights, that activates his.
I am leaning on.
Back 30 seconds.
They already pulled over, and that is why he pulled in behind, because he probably saw that everything and so, oh, they are pulling over. I need to do that as well. That is my interpretation.
Ours is a 30-second loop. So that's why there's no sound until he's actually, you see him on the radio and you can actually hear him. So it's just the 30 seconds catching back up. So that's what you see there.
And leading up to this point.
Now he walks. So as soon as the officer pulls up behind, Lyoya is getting out of the car. We'll see the video coming up. And then the officer immediately tells Lyoya to get back in the car. Or don't get out of the car or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's weird.
Was there anything that you would
I'll
train
slow it
officers to
down
look
when we
for,
play the video again.
Up to this point.
Yes,
You can see it in real
obviously
time.
it's 8:15 in the morning or 8:11 in the morning, so there's not a lot of traffic. It's a weekday, and as you see, if you can tell, Officer Schurr is doing a U-turn to turn and follow that vehicle. And as he's making that U-turn, you see it make a turn, and then as
don't
he turns
get out of the car during the
Oh,
traffic.
wait a minute. Did he make a U-turn?
I think the report
So
is
he
that
met
made-
the other car, made a U-turn, turned around, started following. Yeah, it might
And leading up to this
actually
point,
be
is there
that.
anything that you would train officers to look for up to this point?
Yes, obviously it's 8:15 in the morning or 8:11 in the morning, so there's not a lot of traffic. It's a weekday, and as you see, if you can tell, Officer Schurr is doing a U-turn to turn and follow that vehicle. And as he's making that U-turn, you see it make a turn, and then as he turns onto that street, it turns again. So that could be a clue of they're trying to evade you or get to a driveway to pull into.
No, I don't think they even.
possible
Oh,
factors that we
maybe
train
they
our
saw
officers to
a
look for,
cop car
as we're
going the other
reading
way and then just ignored it because they were drunk as skunks.
And
Yeah, could have been.
here,
I don't think
you
this
see
is
this one.
evading.
No, but he's talking about what could have been in Officer
Yeah.
Schurr's mind at the time.
Yeah.
If a car that immediately has a cop behind it turns, that could be a sign that they're doing something.
Maybe.
when
That's
Mr.
part
Lyoya
of their
opens the
training
door and
anyways.
is stepping out of the vehicle. How do you train GRPD officers, or what do you train them to do if someone jumps out of the car before the officer has had a chance to get out of his car?
Oh, yes. It's a concern because they again, the action versus reaction. The driver is already opened the door, is getting out of the car. The officer's still on the radio or putting his vehicle in park, got to open the door to get out. Countless cases a year of officers being ambushed inside their cars. They pull a traffic stop. Happens far too often. So that's obviously the gravest concern. We try to we show some videos of that and show statistics so they have that in the back of their mind, understand that, and not to say that that's possible in every case, but it's a concern. They have to address that. So driver's out of the car already, so Officer Schurr's got to hustle to get his car in park, get his car door open, and address that driver immediately. So I talked about it a little bit ago. Watching the hands is the biggest concern right away to see if he's trying to access a weapon. If he's blading away, like I talked about, or hiding side of his body because he could potentially be armed. It happens. It's one of those things that steps up your concern when somebody immediately jumps out of the car.
And what do you train officers to think about if someone does jump out of the car?
One, to get out of your car. You're not in a good spot in there because it kind of locks you in. Like I said, ambushes happen, or people close that distance and are on top of you in your car before you get out. So get out of your car, give some verbal direction right away to try to gauge. One, then you can feel for what that situation is. Maybe it is somebody that's late to school or giving their kids a ride somewhere and they're just trying to explain it. But you got to get out, have some verbal communication with them, evaluate that situation right away. So biggest thing, get out of your car, watching the hands, the waistline area, and then have some verbal direction with them, communication with them.
And why? What manner of verbal direction do you train officers to have? in this
Trying to
situation?
be firm, right? It's not the time to, good morning. My name's Officer Captain Snyder. They're already out of the car. They're approaching you. It can be a good concern. So establish some type of control. Be professional, but establish firm control, verbal direction right away.
And what do you train officers to think about someone who's jumped out of the car?
Like I said, not to say every instance like this is going to be some kind of a tragic ending or you're going to be viciously assaulted or killed, but it's a possibility. So you've got to mitigate that right away. So getting out of your car, addressing them. Like I said, sometimes it's just they're being evasive. Again, you're reacting to that driver. The driver knows if what they've done or if they have a valid license, they don't have a license, they have something in the car, they don't want you to find out. So again, far more common for people to flee right here or try to distract you enough to get you off of your preliminary investigation there.
If you could play, could you dim the lights, please? Bob, could you please play the video through RFN 1846?
Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car! Stay in the car! Get in the car! Dude, I'm stopping you. You have a license? You have a license. I'm stopping you. You have a license. Do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and for the record, this is RFN 1830. Okay. So I want to walk through some of this. What do you train officers to do when they approach the vehicle in this instance where someone's jumped out of the car?
Like I said, watching the hands is the gravest concern right there to make sure they're not going to try to access the weapon. And establishing some type of verbal direction commands to gauge cooperation. Officer Schurr clearly is instructing him to stay in the car, get back in the car. He's not cooperative. And then he wants to argue why he's being stopped. Officer Schurr is trying to communicate with him, confirms he speaks English. So he closes that distance to cut off an avenue of escape. That way, if the subject tries to flee, he's much better positioned to give chase on foot.
And can you talk about why do you train officers to ask for a driver's license?
It's just the immediate part of the traffic stop. One, to identify the subject, and then two, to establish whether they have a valid license or a license on them. Having a reason for a valid arrest right away.
Yeah.
So you can effect an arrest and
It's our fault.
continue that investigation.
My apologies.
And if someone doesn't produce a license, what do you train officers to do?
Typically, driving while unlicensed without your license, it's a misdemeanor offense in the state of Michigan. So they're going to at least be temporarily detained, if not physically arrested. So if they refuse to produce a license, they don't have one, then try to cooperatively talk them into handcuffs. If not, then you have to physically restrain them.
Okay. Could you play the video to RFN 1945, please?
Dim the
Can I
light.
see your license?
And for the record, this is RFN 1949. Do you observe the driver at this point doing anything when Officer Schurr asks him for a license?
Yes. When Officer Schurr asks the driver for the license, the driver reaches to, it appears his right back pocket, taps it to like, I'm going to get it out of my wallet, and then just taps and keeps moving without producing a license. So again, those are verbal cues. We try to train our people to recognize that that's evasive or evasion.
Hey, Aaron, welcome
if you will,
back.
That, you've asked them for the license a few times, they're not providing it, and now they're whether they're trying to initiate a plan or what, they're trying to keep you from your direct action.
Bob, could you play through RFN 3195, please?
The plate doesn't belong in this car. Do you have a license or not? Do you have a driver's license? Where is it at? Get it from me. The plate does not belong in this car. No. Stop.
Okay, and for the record, this is RFN 3213.
Is she
At this
confused?
point, what do you observe about Mr. Lyoya?
At the start of the video, or start of this clip, rather, excuse me, Officer Schurr again asks him for his license. He opens the door and asks the passenger to find it. Again, not a uncommon thing where, again,
This
trying
is
to
a bit
base
of narration,
distract you.
isn't?
Officer Schurr gives him an opportunity to produce a license.
I don't like when people narrate a video because this is up for the jury to interpret.
Right before the end of this,
But he's
there,
qualified as
the
an
driver
expert.
starts
An
to
expert can
move
offer
towards the north
opinions
car,
of this
which is
nature.
common to.
That's
I don't have a
why.
license. I know I don't have a license.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
but
maybe create
it's
some
still
distance.
narration.
Run.
No, I agree.
I mean, he can opine on the basic procedures and say these are the procedures that a cop is supposed to follow.
And this
But
is how you train.
narrating the video
To
in the
grab
best
and to,
possible light,
limit
that's
that avenue of
narration.
escape, and more times than
In
not,
my
just that
opinion.
grab and pulling their hands on their back is enough to affect an arrest.
Bob, could you please go forward to RFN 3195? Oh, sorry.
He zooms in so randomly, this cameraman.
Okay, sorry. Can you go forward to 3344?
Stop.
Now the guy should still not have
Back up
resisted.
a little bit.
Right.
Okay. So leading up to, and for the record, this is RFN 3344.
Look how quickly all of a sudden chaos breaks.
Throughout this, can you describe what you saw here?
Yes. So the start of the clip, Officer Schurr's got a hold of the driver. And as he tries to, I assume, try to bring his arms behind his back, the driver spins and by spinning is able to push the officer off of him or kind of launch him, if you will, almost off of him. And then Officer Schurr goes back in to grab onto him again, and the driver actually like strikes at his hands to knock him away, and then is creating this distance here.
Okay. Could you just back up frame, like a few frames? Keep going. So you were saying, when did you see, can you just explain kind of what you're talking about with the?
Yeah. Can you zoom into the top screen?
Thank you.
So you can see it appears Officer Schurr's feet are, if you go back and forward a little bit, his feet actually come off the ground. They're off the ground there. So as the driver spins and Officer Schurr's got a hold of him, he's actually off the ground. So that movement by the driver is enough to actually physically pick him up and spin him. And then he breaks his grip by actually, on the bottom screen, you can see it appears as the driver brings his right arm down. As you can see, it knocks Officer Schurr's left hand off his grab, and then he ends up hitting his own arm and knocking it off by that strike or block of the driver into Officer Schurr.
I mean, this testimony is good for the defense.
What
the best thing
level
I've
of
seen
resistance
thus
would
far
the
for
driver
the defense.
Yeah, definitely.
Active aggression, in my opinion, by the strikes. And it went from a driving offense to now a resist and obstruct or assault on a police officer.
And what type of offenses are those?
State R&O charge is a felony. Depending on the assault on a police officer, that could be two, but not here, I would think.
Okay, and is there anything about the positioning of Mr. Lyoya that you observe in this that you would train officers to look for?
Yes, so I would refer to this as an inside position. So clearly at the beginning, Officer starts with his like a chest to back position where he's behind him.
As I speed it up,
that's ideal.
we'll do a video again.
But when we're face to face, that's a problem because then we're much closer to be assaulted. Clearly, the driver can block your hands or punch your hands away. It's difficult to control a human being face to face. So ideally, we want to be face away.
Okay. All right, Bob, could you please play this through 3402? Okay, for the record, this is RFN 3415. At this point, and I guess a few frames, backing up a few frames, did you observe anything about the vehicle that Officer Schurr was driving that day?
He's got his lights activated and it's fully marked. We drive Ford Explorers, more or less sedans, so they're fully marked. It's got a full light bar on it and it's activated. And he's in a full uniform, full police uniform.
And you see Officer Schurr reaching for his radio. Oh, I guess we can play it. Bob, if you want to play the video now through 3471. And for the record, this is RFN 3477. When Officer Schurr calls out on the radio, we got one running. What does that mean?
It's just simple radio traffic to let dispatch and other units know that you're in a foot pursuit. So again, it's imperative to get that information out because now you're separated away from our car. Our car's got a locator in it, but we don't have locators on human beings. So as Officer Schurr gets away from his cruiser, it's inherently concerning because we don't know where he is. So for accountability and manpower issues. But so he gets the radio traffic out right away. And if you, in that freeze frame in the bottom, you notice I spoke about concerns of secreted weapons or people carrying weapons from hip bones. It's kind of widely accepted in our law enforcement industry that to access that firearm, I've got to create some kind of an arm angle to access that. So on foot pursuits, commonly we see that elbow bend, and not to say that everybody's armed that we chase, but it's something that we train our officers to watch for, to be cognizant of, because it can easily turn into them accessing a firearm. And we've had numerous cases in my career.
An arm bent
when
running
but it is
a sign that he might have a weapon. Everyone's arms bent are running.
And when officers
Weird if
out that
it's
you have
not.
running, how do you train other officers to respond to that?
So when he calls out a traffic stop, available area units will start that way. Normal driving conditions, obeying traffic laws, no emergency equipment. Again, it's 8, 10, 8:15 in the morning. It was a weekday. So traffic's probably pretty congested in the A service area on the southeast side of the city. So once he calls out a foot pursuit, at least the east units should be responding emergency mode, lights and siren if they're available. If not, other service areas. So directly to the north of that would be our south service area. And then north, central, and west. So manpower was an issue that day. We were very short-staffed. So whatever units were available should have been heading emergency fashion, lights and siren, and driving with due care and caution, but obviously exceeding the speed limit.
And why do you train the officers to respond with lights and sirens?
Because of the risk, you're fighting with someone. We know that we want more cops there than not. So to try to get people there as soon as possible. One, the cruiser's unattended. You don't know.
This is why you don't ever trust cops.
Officers into the backyards, they don't know exactly.
Everything you do is bad. You bent your arm while running. That meant you had a gun.
There's a reasons, but we want to get that radio traffic out.
I smell marijuana from 2 cars away on the freeway at 70 miles an hour.
They can just let them go.
No, that's not common practice.
Why not?
Because there's an inherent risk to the community. Just in this example here, if this stops, the driver has already committed a couple of arrestable violations.
Directly elicited to counter
people fleeing into other people's homes, bringing
state's expert witness that said, "Yeah, let him go. Stay with the passenger."
So it's just a risk to the community.
Find the guy,
If somebody
and
knows they did
nothing
something that
bad's
they're
gonna
going to go to
happen.
jail for, and they fought with the police.
That was Professor S.
And if
He was an
the
expert
officer,
in blah blah blah.
say he gets back in his car and starts driving to find him again, there's no saying that that subject can't get back in his car, and drive away. Right now, we've created that jeopardy. So we train people to.
Yeah, there you go, Nick. That's why he pushed his head down.
And what do you train them to do if there is another person?
To create
Be aware of it,
distance.
but
Well,
it's more of a risk.
technically,
When we're
yes.
fighting around cars or struggling with people, and there's 4 people in the car. Some of those things we've had multiple instances of that. But running by a car that's occupied.
That's
is
my
not,
thought.
Be aware of it, but it's not a hindrance to say don't ever do that.
And in some instances, is there any training that you provide on someone who is in the situation where they're by themselves and they have to engage in a foot pursuit?
Yes, we do.
Oh, I'm yellow already.
Where we force the officers to
already. I'm 2.5 hours in. I'm
basically
yellow.
role player, and then work through the scenario.
And is there anything that would prohibit them from, or would prohibit Officer Schurr from continuing to follow?
No, we and that's what we train on. We talk about some of the risks, right? Where people potentially are following the same path, nighttime, backyards. There's a multitude of reasons, but or issues, but that's what we train to be aware of.
Yeah,
And,
or doing that.
mitigate those best possible.
And pursuant to GRPD policy and training,
this
is
guy
it your opinion
definitely
that
was.
Officer Schurr was reasonable in pursuing Mr. Lyoya?
The guy
and
known to
Yes.
his friends
even
as
though there was
him.
someone else still occupied in the car.
Yes.
Could you please play the video to RFN 3555? Okay, for the record, this is RFN 3555. So what do you train officers to do once someone is actively running away?
To try to catch them, obviously. That's with varied success sometimes, but obviously Officer Schurr catches up to the driver pretty quickly. And then it's sometimes people give up right away when you tell them to stop. They lay down, they put their hands up. Other times we have to tackle them to the ground.
I don't know what
push
I
them to
said
the
there.
ground. And clearly in this incident, Officer Schurr pushes the driver
I
to the
believe
ground.
they
tackles
are.
him to
Yeah,
the
there's a
ground.
whole page dedicated to him.
And based on what Officer Schurr, or it appears that he would know at this point, just that the plates didn't match the car and the driver was starting to run away, what would you train, or I guess how do you train GRPD's officers, or what do you train them to think about with regards to the car?
It's unknown. Again, it could be a multitude of factors there. An improper plate, or a plate doesn't match the vehicle.
Even in 1.5 speed, this guy is so boring.
The car's not
This
recorded
is normal
stolen yet,
speeding.
or-
Oh, this is normal
They just
speed.
bought it, they registered
Yeah, 'cause I
it.
keep
There's a
playing the
multitude of
video.
factors there, but it's a concern, and it's a valid reason for a stop.
And what do you train officers to think about the person who's running at this point?
Well, just this has continued this path of noncompliance, and it's escalated from verbal noncompliance, failure to produce an ID, failure to produce a license. Now there's been assaultive behavior. Now they're fleeing on foot. It just continues down the path of lack of cooperation.
And Bob, can you please play the video to RFN 3373?
Oh my God. Okay. Hang on.
Oh, no, sorry.
Now she's confused.
4479.
Okay.
Stop! Stop! Get your hands on your back, okay? Hands behind your back, okay? Get your hands on your back.
Okay, and for the record, this is RFN 4479. Could you zoom
I
in?
just put up a goal on my chat for one $50 super chat, and I will take a scotch of whiskey, a shot of whiskey.
Nice.
Yeah. Or a combined $50.
And could you play this to RFN 4823?
I actually bought a new whiskey. Well, it's my favorite one.
Okay, so I guess, sorry, I should have asked you this before this part, but leading up to this point, what did you observe Mr. Lyoya do?
So Officer Schurr tackles him to the ground and has to get his radio.
Yeah, let's make this a drunken stream.
He was struggling to try to keep
Thank
him
you,
on the
Dave.
ground. And then these clips that we just saw, the driver is able to get back to a tabletop position, if you will, where his hands and knees are on the ground. He's in a good base. I mean, it's very challenging.
$40 to go.
And then he's able to even get back up. They go back down. He gets back up. What is striking is the continued that Officer Schurr is unable to physically control him, and he puts out radio traffic of sending more cars, which now means everybody that's available should be coming.
Chances are I will take a
That's the whole city is coming to him.
shot of scotch anyway, but it would be nice to.
He's clearly unable to control the driver. He tried lower level force to tackle some knee strikes. He's trying to physically push him back down, and he's unable to.
And you mentioned a tabletop position. Can you explain what that is and what that means for the officer?
Yes. So the subject on their hands and knees, think of a toddler crawling, right? That position is what we refer to as a tabletop position. It's a very strong position.
That's the
if you
yoga
don't want to be
term.
moved. You have your limbs are kind of shortened. You have all your power in an inside position. I call it. You're tight. And it's challenging to defeat that. And being like riding on somebody's back right there, if I'm trying to put all my weight on them, it's easy to roll that, reverse the situation where the top position now becomes the bottom position. And it's a dangerous situation.
So don't jump on a suspect's
and-
back if he's in tabletop.
From the last segment of the video that we just saw zoomed in,
Unless you
what did you
really
observe about Mr. when he was on the ground in the prone position?
Just that he was able to get back to a standing position with relative ease, regardless of what the officer was attempting to do.
And at that point, what was Mr. Lyoya's? I'm sorry, I could not be clear. Bob, could you just back up a few frames to RFN 479?
I see this more as the officer should have known that he was physically not capable
4579.
of any of this.
Yeah, but they're treated like gods. You know, you can take down anybody with these moves.
No, you can't.
And from this position, what did you observe?
Yeah, so that's what I'm referring to is that tabletop position. You see the driver's on his hands and knees, and Officer Schurr is, for a lack of a better term, almost like piggybacked, right? He's just riding them. And he's both feet are off the ground, his hands are off the ground. He's trying to call out on his radio, so he's distracted with his one arm. He doesn't have full control. So he's calling out with his radio, and he's in a bad position because, for example, all the driver would have to do is duck his head forward.
Hey, thank you, Wilson.
And then he's on his back or face down, and then the driver would easily be on top of him.
$30 to go.
Nice.
And a few frames
Thank you
forward,
so
you
much.
see on all, when you say
Well, the British pound is.
Yeah, so prone, just belly down, your face down.
$13.
And that's an ideal handcuffing position for us. We want to be on top while they're prone.
27 to go.
As you can see, the officer attempts that multiple times here.
I put it at
and
1.25.
The driver
This might be better.
is successful in just standing up on his own power, regardless of the force being put on him.
Yeah. Donna Adelson had a hearing earlier today, so if you get me really sloshed, I might do a drunken reaction to the hearing.
Round, stomach down, and push himself all the way up. With
Yes,
Officer
he
Schurr.
did that various stages through here, but yes, he does that. And that in itself is going back to the totality of the circumstances, the factors in use of force decision-making or objective reasonableness, size, strength, ability. Those are the factors. And as this progresses, exhaustion. So it's physically, it's extremely difficult to control another human being that doesn't want to be controlled. It's exhausting. So you can see that this has been going on for several seconds now, the struggle, and the officer is unsuccessful in his application of force at this point.
And at this point, what would you train an officer to look for as far as the surroundings? What would be other indicators you would train an officer?
The gentleman in the white, I forget the witness's name, sorry. Is that Mr. Butler?
Mr. Butler.
He's saying something to the driver or the passenger, I forget, but
I had
he's
to
there.
speed it up again. I'm sorry.
He's unknown. He's going to help you or help the driver or
problem is,
what that
this
situation
is an important
And then obviously
witness,
the
and
passenger
I'm
vehicle
just,
now is out of the car. And,
I'm done
they're
with
both kind of
him.
in the peripheral view of Officer Schurr. So now he's got multiple subjects.
If I was a juror, I would have tuned out
he's
a
gotta be aware of
long time ago.
And at this point, have you are Officer Schurr's actions consistent with GRPD policy and training?
Yes.
I
if you
agree.
could
Poor
please say-
decision makings throughout.
It's like the guy from the YSL trial. Remember him?
Yeah.
Who tried also a guy like 5'2" in an unmarked cop car with no cop clothes or anything. Jumped out of his car, ran up to this 6'4", 300-pound alleged gangbanger. Get down on the ground, and he just ran a few steps and shot him.
Yeah.
Hey, Derek, thank you. It is game controller. That gets us to 22.
Got 25 to go.
22.
Stop. Resisted.
What are we doing? Do you
I
have a
don't
question?
And
There we
based
go.
on
He's
this,
talking
did
again.
you, at this point in time, have you heard Officer Schurr
Hey,
call
Hella.
for backup again?
Hey, Hella.
The send me more cars, yes.
And at that point, what would you expect the responding officers in the area to do?
Nick is
Respond
25
to emergency
sets
modes,
away
lights
from
and
doing
siren,
shots of whiskey for the rest of the stream.
Get there as soon as possible. as safe as possible.
And what have you observed about Mr. Lyoya's behavior during this part of the video?
The verbal okay is not matching his physical actions. Right? He's
I would do
verbally
it
saying,
even
okay,
in my Bigfoot shot glass, which is 2 ounces.
The officer, they get to their feet, and Officer Schurr tries almost like for lack of a better term, chicken wing, his arms behind him. Maybe an
Let me
attempt
see
to,
where my wife is at when this stream is done. and I'll
handcuff
let
him,
you
secure
know.
him, but they progress
Okay,
across.
let's
the
do
lawn.
this with my Swedish
Something
pronunciation.
there.
My
And
chill
then,
and chat stream.
Another knee strike is applied, and then it appears he tries
You want
to
me to be on your chill and chat stream,
He's
Hella?
got him wrapped up in his upper half, and that's unsuccessful as well.
And is there anything that you observe about Officer Schurr throughout this?
Yeah, if you back up a couple frames and play it again, you can hear his heavy breathing. So it appears he's already hitting levels of exhaustion.
And what do you train officers to do once they start feeling exhausted?
Well, and we talk about this a lot, and as they first come aboard, it's kind of accepted that, hey, in 30 seconds of strenuous output, you're roughly going to have about 50% of the energy levels you started that encounter with. So if you're struggling with somebody or fighting with somebody and you start out at 100%, you're going to be greatly reduced here within 30 to 45 seconds. So we teach them to use force reasonably, but with full force initially, because we don't want these to draw out for a longer than they have to.
Why not?
Because the exhaustion level has a bunch of effects to it. It can impair your decision making. Clearly, you potentially can't defend yourself. Your tools on your belt. there's a list of factors, but yeah, exhaustion is a problem.
Bob, could you please play the video through 5548?
That's it.
For the record. And leading
You
up to
could
this
hear
point,
him
what did you
breathe.
observe
Okay.
Mr. Lyoya doing?
Still actively resisting the officer, zero compliance. And again, like I said, he's giving verbal, okay, like he's going to comply, but he's not showing any compliance at this point. The officer's been unsuccessful in all of his attempts that he's forced up to this point. In that bottom left screen, it appears that the officer's got a hold of his sweater, like an upper shoulder area.
Hey, 17 to a shot of whiskey. Thank you.
How are you doing math?
We teach our officers to carry it on a non-dominant side, in a cross-draw style application, like I have mine on my left side, to avoid any type of
35
confusion during a deadly
total.
force incident or create that, where they pull their taser on accident.
No, a pound is worth
We've
more.
always dictated they carry it in the cross-draw style. So as you can see, Officer Schurr's arm is coming across his body to retrieve that.
10
And it's
pounds
of
is
note,
like
it takes him a few seconds to get it out.
$13.
From the graduation video where he's on the dummy, he's struggling to get two hands to access that. Our old holsters at this time had a snap break, and the snap went towards your body. So if I was leaning that way, I'm fighting against myself, if that makes sense. So it takes him a little bit of time. He's one-handed, and he's trying to hold the driver with his back, upper shoulder arm area there, his sweater, and access his taser with his right hand.
Bob, and is there anything that you observed Mr. Lyoya saying at this point?
I didn't catch that in any of my reviews because I didn't have the dictation until recently, but they get the keys part. So that is concerning because what's the plan there?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. Why Loyola told his buddy to get the keys.
And Bob, could you please play the video through RFN 5649? Okay, if you could back it up. 5649.
Yeah. Here, another thing, he's actively grabbing onto him instead of pushing him away.
At this point, what have you observed?
If he is supposed to create distance, why does he keep holding on to him?
And he's trying to access his taser.
Push him away,
Again,
fire
back to
the
action.
taser.
He formulates a plan in his head to grab the taser, but it takes him some time to actually accomplish that. So in that meantime, the driver spins, so now they're face to face. So you see in the bottom left frame, Officer Schurr's got a grip of his upper sweater still because that sweater is loose fitting and he's able to spin on him. So now he's on an inside position, and it's
They
hard to see
do
over
very low
the
energy.
computer screen there, but
I agree.
he's reaching for Officer Schurr's taser. I can't tell
Yeah.
if he does have a hold of it.
And what does the training teach about the dangers of Mr. Lyoya having a grab on the taser?
It's quite uncommon, frankly. We have a few a year maybe where there's an attempt disarm, but they're usually holstered. We've had a few incidents over the years where they swat at it to try to deflect it, but we've never had where somebody grabs onto it. while it's on
Sticky
hold.
widget, thank you so much.
That immediately raises huge
That
concerns.
brings us to.
Just swat it away. They're grabbing hold of it and
Wait a
And what,
minute, I haven't calculated in
dangers-
Dali's 3 memberships.
Oh, you adding in just to get the.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
just
time.
that the chances are it's going to be used.
I have no. But if I calculate in that, I also calculate in Wendy's $20, which puts me way beyond.
And how do you train officers to
time.
perceive someone who has taken their weapon?
How do you perceive them? Sorry.
Yeah. How do you train officers to?
Hi, Sticky Widget. Oh, member for a whole month. Thank you so much.
Grab their weapon.
That it's potentially going to be a deadly force assault. Again, trying to attack an officer and disarm them has escalated into highest levels of resistance.
Cheers.
And what does
Oh,
DOD
in
train?
my Bigfoot shot glass.
officers to- How are officers trained to assess threats when they're disarmed?
To fight, to retain that weapon, obviously, at all costs, and then fight the weapon back.
What do you train officers to think once they're
Nom, nom,
fully
nom.
disarmed?
Again, that it's a deadly force encounter. It's not a-
Better you than
it's-
me.
we haven't had success.
I'll stick with my water till I get out of the tree.
Decades. So,
Thank you, folks. Thank you,
happens on
chat.
And people, officers are killed yearly because of it. So it's of the greatest threat.
And what does the training teach about the intent of someone who is disarmed as a police officer?
that you have to presume it's for the worst reasons, right? I don't have to, if I get disarmed by firearm, I don't have to wait to have it used against me.
I think there is a clip.
That intention alone to grab an officer's weapon.
Maybe not. I don't know. All holsters are made different, I suppose.
Bob, could you play the video through RFN 5770, please?
Then once we're done here, go over and clear up Ella for a bit. And then I'm going to sleep well.
Okay, and at this point, what do you observe Officer Schurr doing?
So
Jesus.
just as the frame starts,
They've been talking about this for over an hour, playing just a couple
Officer
of seconds.
appears to do, I refer to it as a wheel
tedious.
weapon retention, where he wheels it to the ground and kind of a circular motion to try to break that grip.
Oh, I want this to be
And
presented in a
if you look
better
at the bottom
way.
left screen, the grips of each, the officer and the driver there.
It's
driver's
bad
got
facts.
a overhand grip and his arm locked out, and the officer's got just a handle of that, where the purchase.
I mean,
of
all of this,
is
we can, all of this leading up to that final half second. Yeah, okay.
The officer's trying.
It's that final half second.
And it's unsuccessful. And one.
That is what he needs to explain away.
The officer tries to.
Well, I think he's trying to
Like I
say,
explained
like,
earlier,
when all these
not an ideal,
circumstances, all
distance
these things
management,
going
but,
on,
he
make
could
it a
easily fired
extremely
once that probes,
dangerous
or another set of probes
situation
and gotten, the
for the
spread
officer, and the officer should have grave
now
concern.
must go to pass station or lock up if he hadn't grabbed on, the driver hadn't grabbed on the taser.
And, at this point, what is Mr. Lyoya doing?
I
He's
think they're
driving
really
the
just
taser
trying to
away from
say,
himself
like, here are
and
all the
appears towards the center.
instances in which an
Cell phone
officer would
video
be
shows him,
trained
both
about danger.
traveling towards
Like,
the
if you
ground.
see this, it's danger. If you see that, it's
Bob, can
danger.
you
If
play
you
the
see
video
this third
through,
thing, it's danger. And you've got all three of them going on.
Hey! Guy from American says, have another. I have no idea. Let's see here. Fan funding.
Yeah, sorry, can you back up? I missed mine. Yeah, if you can go to 580, or if you can just zoom in and I'll tell you when to stop. If you can go a few frames back. Okay, if you can just back up and I'll tell you when to stop.
Then I will be at 71 total, bringing us 29 to another shot.
And at this point, what do you observe Mr. Lyoya doing with
If
the
it is
taser?
every 50
He's
bucks.
still got control or attempting to take control of it. You can see Officer
Thank you,
Schurr
Jeremy
still got,
McLean.
in that grip that he had before.
See, this is the
it's
part
pointing at the
that's,
ground. You can see the
this is
LED
getting
flashlight
closer and
pointing towards the
closer.
ground. So now,
Oh,
in that position,
19 left.
position. He's got the elbow bend going.
I'm living Dave's life over here.
Driver's on his back and has,
Alone on a
down-
farm drinking.
Okay, and what hand do you observe it in?
there's
Mr.
so
Lyoya's?
many times in the
Appears
Karen
it's
Reed
left.
case.
Can you
With Loyola,
moving forward, please?
what's got going on?
Okay, trigger warning soon.
Yeah.
And yes, if you could stop at RFN 6220. Okay, at this point, what do you observe? Where is the taser located at this point?
It's directly into the ground. And again, similar positions. The Officer Schurr's got an odd angle arm, kind of a bent 90-degree arm angle, and the driver's got, again, still a locked out position with what appears to be a dominant grip.
And what hand do you observe the taser Mr. Lyoya's?
It appears it's his right hand now.
Okay, Bob, can you play the video, please?
No, that he's good. You can talk to him, bro. Yeah. That he's good, brother. If you talk to him like good, like him, yeah. Stop talking to him like that. Now he's good at first. No, you hit him too. Now he ain't probably saying that's it.
What's happening?
Yeah, please stop it here. Can zoom out. This is RFN 749. And at this point, what do you observe? I know the camera went out a little bit, but what do you observe?
The biggest thing that struck me was the, it sounds, you can hear the stress in Officer Schurr's voice, the exhaustion. He's barely getting out commands. They're lagging, if you will, or they're drawn out because of the lack of oxygen. He's breathing so heavy. The positions have switched again to be, again, the driver's in that tabletop type position. You can see as it backs up, he rolls to that position, and the officer kind of rotates to the top position again. For a brief second there, he's rocking on his back. His feet are off the ground. He's in a very unstable position, and he moves to access his firearm after a command to let go of the taser.
And Bob, if you could zoom in on the cell phone video. Where do you observe the taser at this point?
It appears it's in the driver's right hand.
And Bob, could you just do?
Yeah, this is where he switches the taser
Tell you
around.
when to stop. Oh, you can play it. Okay. Frame forward from here.
Yeah. Now we are moving into
Okay. Stop right here.
trigger warning. Literally.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you observe here?
The struggle, the position is fluid, right? The officer's access his firearm, it's out of the holster. He's trying to maintain some type of a position on top.
And here you will see him pressing the guy down to the ground.
His right hip is towards the ground, and he appears to be spinning into the officer. He's got control of the taser. It's in his right hand, it appears. And the officer's got his left arm kind of draped over the driver's left shoulder to try to maintain some balance.
And at this,
And another command to let go of the taser was in that clip there, too.
I think it was drop the taser on that one.
Was it?
Yeah, this is where the last drop the taser. So this is after he had.
Oh,
given
he's
the
trying to
taser.
Gather just having a conversation about this.
And
Oh,
at this
what
point,
did you say? Oh, yeah.
um,
Okay. I'll go with that.
you can just play it forward from here.
I agree, Shax.
Yeah.
I do it more for Gigi.
Yeah. Usually in my trials, I refuse to show autopsy photos and the immediate moment of death, because it's but in this case, it is what happened that last half second is guilty or innocent for me.
Really? Awesome.
Nice. I have to invite Lefty to my birthday stream on Friday.
Yeah, definitely.
Send me a DM on X, Lefty, and I will send you an invite to my birthday stream, and we will get you some more subscribers.
So leading up to this point, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but in your experience, how fast can someone on the bottom reposition themselves so they are facing you or gain some sort of advantage?
How fast can they reverse that position? In a blink of an eye, that can be in a second or two.
And in high stress, close quarter situations like this, is it realistic to expect that an officer could stop someone from initiating or completing a full spin if that happens quickly?
I'm sorry, could you ask that one time?
In this type of situation where it's dynamic, it's moving very quickly, is there a situation, is it realistic to expect that an officer could stop someone from initiating or completing the spin, rolling towards them?
No, in the sense too of the video, if you saw the steamy breath out of Officer Schurr, that would indicate how deep of a guttural breathing he's trying to accomplish there. So at that level of exhaustion, no, I don't believe he could have prevented that situation from spinning in a second or two.
In your opinion, based on your training and experience, does the threat from the bottom position ever end until they're fully controlled?
No.
And based on everything we've reviewed, do you have an opinion on whether an objectively reasonable DRPD officer in Officer Schurr's situation would have been in fear of serious bodily injury or death when Mr. Lyoya started getting up off the ground with his taser in his hand?
I do.
And what is that opinion?
That it was reasonable. That a reasonable officer could perform the same
This is
way
what
in
they
that
needed.
situation.
Yeah.
Thank you. No further
And
questions.
as rebuttal, they will play the two videos side by side. This is a proper stop. This is not.
We're going to go in across.
Your statement was the GRPD is trained to chase and effect and arrest. That's what you just told the jury, correct?
That's a common practice, yes.
Those were your words. Those are your exact words. I wrote it down. Trained to chase and effect and arrest.
Do we train? Yeah, we train our officers to do that. Yes, that's an expectation. Yes.
But we were notified you're a witness. You talked to Detective Tudor, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
You said there's no foot pursuit policy.
There's not a foot pursuit policy, correct?
But you trained them to effect and arrest.
Yes.
Now, this has been pending for like 3 years. Did you prepare this?
I did.
You typed it?
The affidavit?
Yes.
No.
Who typed it?
The defense.
The defense. So the defense typed it. So
Yes.
how many times have you met with the defense over the course of the
You just signed it, you didn't tape it.
videos as well? So you've gone over this case with them 5 or 6 times?
I did not have access to the video until now. I haven't seen it till this week. I mean, the video I had access to was Axon, the body cam, and cell phone camera, not the forensic video.
But this week you said the one with the writing on it, you said you had access to it. You watched it earlier this week.
I saw it, yeah, this week. Yes, not before this week.
So this is one of the biggest events in Grand Rapids in probably your career, isn't it?
It is.
And you don't bother to do a report?
I did an incident report.
See, this is the way to approach a cross-examination. The defense is just like, oh, would you mind repeating everything you said on direct just so I could hear it again? This is how you do. I mean, I granted we're up to speed. I want to do it normal because the inflection is still there.
An expert report. You have access to our expert reports, haven't you?
Your expert reports?
Correct.
Yes.
So you read our expert reports. It's like a 56-page report.
It is.
You're brought up as an expert for the defense. You're their expert. You have at least their degree, GRPD policy, and you produce a 2-page affidavit.
Yes.
Even in that affidavit, you don't say anything about training to chase officers or to effect an arrest. You don't say that in this affidavit, do you?
No.
You say includes training on solo foot pursuits, such as drills and scenario-based training. GRPD does not prohibit officers from chasing a fleeing suspect.
Correct.
That's different than you train them to apprehend a fleeing suspect, isn't it?
The solo foot pursuit drills will end in an arrest.
Prohibiting and training positively are two different things, aren't they?
Yes.
Where is that policy? Where's the written policy where you train to effectuate an arrest? We spent an hour and a half here looking at all the policies. Where's the written policy where you effect an arrest? You train your officer to effectuate an arrest.
Off of foot pursuit?
Yes.
We don't have one.
You don't have one. But that's your testimony now.
Now they're going into the actual policies. They waited until cross-examination of this guy before they brought up the policies. Because he's a captain. He should know all of them by heart.
There was an objection. I wanted to hear what it was.
Oh,
from this jury that we trained that.
Objection, Your Honor. This is argumentative, and if you want
It is argumentative.
mandatory training,
yeah, it's cross-examination.
Well, still can't be argumentative.
the fact that he's trying to.
And they do it all in front of the jury.
I did not
Speaking objections in front. And there. And there.
Of course you are, Judge.
This is a sidebar. Get up here. I mean,
You had an hour and a half to present the policy, and we didn't see any policy. These are the policies that were provided.
That's
These are
argumentative.
the training policies for Officer Schurr.
These are training outlines. These are policies, yes.
Okay. Where? Point it out. Where is it?
Years older when showing the side.
His recruit class one is in here? Is that in here?
There's a crew class. We got everything.
Okay. Yeah, his recruit class is 15-3. These are this is 21.
These are the training documents we have.
Let him objection. Let him answer the question.
15-3. We not being argumentative. We train in foot pursuits. We do solo foot pursuit drills. We don't have a policy that mandates, but we don't have a policy that prohibits.
So it doesn't mandate. You said you train to chase and effect an arrest. It doesn't mandate. It means that basically they can chase based on the circumstances, right?
Yes.
All right, that's a bit different than they just run. You don't train them to be greyhounds chasing after rabbits, then, right?
Correct.
It's based on the total facts and circumstances.
Yes.
So if somebody's driving down the road and guy's got a gun in the car, passenger's got a gun in the car, driver flees, you're not going to leave chase the driver. You're going to stay with the passenger, right?
Potentially.
Potentially.
Do we know if he's got a gun? Do you see the gun?
I just said the passenger's got a gun. Passenger's got a gun. Driver flees. You're going to have your officer stay with the guy with the gun, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's based on the totality of the circumstances. That's a little bit different than what you testified to, right?
That situation is completely different.
Sure. So it's based on the totality of the circumstances, just like we've been talking about. All those policies up there, the totality of the circumstances controls, not just you're trying to have an officer just chase anybody that runs down the road.
Yes.
So one of the things we do talk about, and were you in here for former Sergeant Johnson's testimony?
I was not.
You weren't. Well, one of the things he testified to, and he said one of the things Grand Rapids is was very specific on is every traffic stop is an unknown risk.
That's correct.
Okay. You don't know what you're going into when you get into a traffic stop. Anything can happen, right?
Yes.
And one of the concerns Grand Rapids Police has is guns in the car.
Correct.
Guns are, guns on people in the car.
Mhm.
Say yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Guns under the seat.
Yes.
Guns anywhere in the car.
Correct.
So when you pull somebody over, you got to be worried about a gun if you don't know about it.
Potentially, yes.
So every person in the car potentially has a gun.
Correct.
Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel we marked the people to 36 for identification purposes. I'm going to show you what we marked as exhibit 36 for identification purposes. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Could you tell the jury what that is?
This is a mandatory training 19-2. 19 means 2019 was the year we performed this, and 02 would mean it's earlier in the year, the second training of the year. So it's a firearms training outline.
And so this is, we have a number of training documents where you go through mandatory training for your officers, correct?
Yes.
And this would be training that we've received for the defendant that he took in 2019.
Correct.
His signature's on it.
Yeah, sign in. Yep, sign in there.
I would move the admission of people to exhibit 36, Your Honor.
Is this going to show that he didn't get foot pursuit training?
Looking, I believe it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, page 5. The one thing I did find regarding foot pursuits is there a Seattle officer-involved shooting?
Yes.
There's a Seattle officer-involved shooting, and in your foot pursuit, what it talks about there is allow for a safe distance and have a plan while chasing an armed or potentially armed subject. Treat someone you pull over as potentially armed.
Here's the problem with this, though. I keep coming back to it. Just because he might not have followed policy doesn't mean he was acting unlawfully. And if you're not acting unlawfully, then he still gets the right to defend himself.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, it's almost as if they are trying to prove each other's cases. It's
odd. I mean, they keep coming down to police procedures. And I know the question is a reasonable, prudent officer in that same position, what would they have done? That's the standard. But they're trying to argue that because he might have not followed procedures, that he can't claim self-defense.
that's the difference between correlation and causation. It's just, it might correlate, but it's not a causation.
Right.
And all they had to do in this cross-examination or with a rebuttal witness, they could have just, we don't care about him, and just called back their expert. Look at these two videos side by side.
I will say I am very disappointed in the defense. Their lackluster approach to this case is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Will you call them tomorrow? No.
That's what it says.
It does, yes.
So that's the one thing we can find on foot pursuits is that somebody could be potentially armed. You don't go chasing after them because they could be armed. It's for officer safety, right?
It says allow a safe distance.
Okay.
Have a plan while chasing armed or potentially.
Going
So
hands-on or tackling someone who is known to be armed is bad tactics.
I would agree.
That's what
You don't know him to be armed.
That's in the training outline, yes.
Training outline. But that's the outline. That's what you're telling your officers. That's what the defendant would have learned back in 2019.
But he doesn't know him to be armed.
Correct.
He's
One of
not
the things
armed.
he also talks about is maybe discontinue the foot chase and set a perimeter.
Potentially, yes.
So officers are perfectly fine in discontinuing, not chasing after, not mandatorily.
Just because he had the option doesn't
Correct.
mean he had to do it. He had to take the other option. That doesn't mean that.
In terms of staying with this foot pursuit policy, you are familiar with the International Chiefs of Police, correct?
I am, yes.
The International Chiefs of Police, you're a member of it.
I am.
Your chief's a member of it.
He is.
both deputy chiefs are a member of it.
They are.
And so they have a foot pursuit policy that they've come up with, correct?
They do, yes.
2019, July of 2019, they came up with a foot pursuit policy, a model, if you will.
Yes.
In that model, don't they say that chasing officer individually chasing a suspect is inherently dangerous?
That's what it says. It does.
You haven't read it?
I'm not exactly familiar with the verbiage of it, but I'll take your word for it, sir.
You know, I looked through it. Well,
If this is official papers, why haven't you read up on it?
Yeah, I would object to it. It's hearsay. It's not something that he considered with forming his expert opinion. It shouldn't be admissible. I mean, you can question an expert witness and cross-examine an expert witness with a learned treatise without introducing it into evidence and without that expert having read it. So the judge might allow it if that's sort of the scope that they're using this for, is to kind of impeach him with a learned treatise. But I don't know. We'll see where the court goes.
I don't even know. Wait, so it's not moving for submission. He's showing a document to.
It's in the court rules specifically regarding learned treatises.
This is a model foot pursuit policy for the International Chiefs of Police.
Like if you have a doctor on the stand,
So
he's
you're
saying
familiar
one
with
thing,
it, but
but there's a
you've never
medical
read it?
book that says to
We
do
don't
the
have
other.
one, so no, I don't. I didn't. I've read it before, but it's been years. It's been out for 5 years, 6 years. So
I guess you've read it. Why haven't you done anything with it? You're the trained. Why isn't Grand Rapids adopted it?
That's argumentative.
actually, the agency, we don't want a foot pursuit policy.
You don't want a foot pursuit policy.
Correct.
But you would agree that the International Chiefs of Police say they're inherently dangerous, correct?
Yes, they do.
Would you disagree that they're inherently dangerous?
No.
Would you disagree with their recommendation that at least 2 officers be involved in a foot pursuit?
He says foot pursuits
Ideally.
are not inherently dangerous, which I don't know any reason to contradict him.
Well, it's not exclusively dangerous, but it can develop into a dangerous situation.
I feel like anything a cop does can develop into a dangerous situation, to be honest. The reason I'm not a cop. I don't like approaching strangers on the street. I'm not going to be doing it with a badge, to potential criminals, right?
Ideally, but they say that's what you should do. Don't you? Of course, you don't know because you haven't fully read it. Are you familiar with Police Magazine?
I am.
They are a bit too aggressive against him.
See, this is Police Magazine. This would be another sort of learned treatise that he can impeach him with.
Yeah, they are a bit too aggressive. All they needed to do is look at these 2 videos side by side.
Yeah, they are being very aggressive. This is like a little too much. The defense is a little too little. We need the Goldilocks zone. Where's the Goldilocks zone?
I wouldn't. I mean, at this time, I would not have cross-examined him. I would just have chosen to rebut him with their own witness, showing the videos side by side.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. We don't have much left from today. Looks like
No.
they end a little bit.
Under the Michigan Rules of Evidence 707.
Magazine is not a learned treatise.
He can, if he understands it, what it is. He says he uses it. It doesn't have to be.
I didn't say I use it. I said I'm familiar with it.
You don't read it?
I don't read the magazine regularly. I'm familiar with it.
So how is this relevant? We're here to talk about mission.
Well, if it's impeachment, is that learned treatise? I don't know that it is.
Yeah, and often the things in the cop magazines are opinions.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that the judge called it right. I don't know if this is a learned treatise. Like the first one is kind of clear that it's a learned treatise, but a magazine, unless it's think again, medical context, right? You have scientists or doctors that publish things that get peer reviewed, and it might contain the peer reviews and things like that. That's a little different than what this is. And I don't even know what it is. And it sounds like the judge doesn't know what it is. So the judge is questioning whether or not this is actually a learned treatise that's covered under this court rule.
We heard yesterday, police, you were here for the testimony of our experts. They rely on it, correct?
Yeah, and it's all in
They
front of
said
the
they did,
jury.
yes.
You don't ever read police magazine?
I didn't say I don't read it. I said we don't rely on it for policy advisement or direction.
Don't rely on it for direction. So you just do your own thing then. You don't rely on the international chiefs of police.
That's argumentative.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we need to rule of the objection, I did want to check MRE 707, which does allow for the use of learned treatises for impeachment, which includes statements contained in published periodicals or pamphlets. It doesn't have textbooks.
Okay, so the judge is making a ruling that the magazine is going to be considered a learned treatise, so it can be properly used to impeach this this witness. Hey, John C., welcome. We saw you right at the end of our morning stream.
Yeah.
You're like, I missed it. But glad you're here.
Glad you're here.
You're right at the end of this one too. But
Civil pursuits by their very nature are emotionally charged and dangerous events that occur frequently in police work. You'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
I would.
Law enforcement officers must balance their obligation to enforce the law and arrest perpetrators with their personal safety. You'd agree with that.
It's fair.
Unfortunately, that rarely happens. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
More often than
it was the International Police Chiefs recommendations on police tactics. I don't know if it had a name, Ghost, but that's what it was.
not, officers become emotionally captivated by the event
Oh.
and have an instinctive reaction rather than a studied and planned response to resistance and chase without considering the inevitability of suspect capture. Would you agree with that?
I have
Possible,
no idea what he
yes.
just said.
Possible. But that's one of the dangers of somebody's running away, they want to get away, and you rush off and tackle them by yourself. All of a sudden, you got your hands full and you're not aware of it. You're not aware of what could happen next.
Potentially.
And that's one of the things that you teach in grammar police in terms of the reactionary gap.
Yes.
The reactionary gap is the further away somebody is, the better off you are in essence, because you have an opportunity to respond. Is that a fair? I'm not.
Sure. At times in a situation, yes.
Situation. But as soon as you chase somebody and tackle them, you close that reactionary gap.
Yes.
And that kind of goes back to the 2019 outline of the foot pursuit thing, that if somebody's potentially armed, all of a sudden you tackle somebody that's potentially armed, you could be in a world of hurt, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be more settled down tomorrow. Oh, Nick, do you see my private chat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, that's it for today, folks. Now I'm trying to set up my redirect. Nick, what did we learn today?
That both sides try to prove each other's cases.
That's fair enough.
I mean, I must say the showing of the other officer's body cam is so bad for the defense, because they actually show this is how it is supposed to go.
That's what we learned today. There's a lot of people that think loud equals right.
Mm. Oh, I'm going to do this because they were almost half through to the next 50 bucks. So, Bucky's almost a full shot. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
That sounds right. That sounds right, Coach. All right. We are done for today. Well, let's get us back up here. There we go. Now we're full screen. So that was an interesting day. It wasn't as entertaining. It was a little dry, a little boring. Nighttime for Nick now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not yet. Not yet, mommy.
So I did like this officer's testimony, the captain's testimony. I think it helped the defense. I still think the defendant needs to testify. I'm excited for tomorrow. I think the officer is going to be testifying tomorrow.
I agree. He kind of have to, because this is a self-defense case. He has to show or describe his feelings, what he saw, what he didn't see. Again, that's a risk. We don't know how good he is at talking or testifying.
Yeah, we don't. We really don't. We haven't heard him talk at all. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say.
Yeah.
What time are we starting tomorrow, Nick?
I would assume, depending on if the defense only has one witness, this one left, and he doesn't testify, we should start a bit earlier than noon.
Yeah, that's what.
But we can have the stream set at noon and then move it forward, because I don't want to miss closing arguments if that is tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm on board with that. All right, so we're going to set it for noon tomorrow, noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time.
Yep.
And then depending on what happens, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll make Nick rush.
Yeah.
And
I'm free tomorrow. But we will probably be with if you have contacted Branca, so we can talk about what happened today with him tomorrow.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah.
And
sounds like a plan. Right now, we're sending you guys over to Hella, Excited Utterance. She's having a laid back, chill stream.
Yep.
And so that's about it. I'm still thinking guilty, but
I mean,
I could be convinced the other way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's still a long way away.
Yeah.
But let's first thank you to Wendy for your $20 super chat. Thank you to Dali for 3 gifted memberships. Thank you to Dave for $10. Thank you to The World's End for £10. Thank you to Derek for £5. Erin, $5. Sticky Widget, $5. Ivermectin, $5. Dave again, $10. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, and Wendy, you gave me $20, and then I gifted out a bunch of memberships just for fun. So, and Ivermectin with his $4.99, awesome. So,
and I don't think I can gift out
memberships just yet.
No, because the stream went over to the next day, so I can't gift out 5 until tomorrow's stream.
No,
but I will.
All right. Well, you guys all have a good time. I think the song is set up, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.
2 screens light up justice calling from Sweden cold and Great Lakes falling, educating fools, real talk streaming, truth and laughter, crime redeeming. Raise your glass to law and jest, trials not just pain and stress. Teach the world, grind the gears, through the humor, through the tears. Mission can draw, cutting sharp like ice. Swedish fire burns, truth precise. Shot of whiskey, sip of humor through the tears. Bang the gavel, crack the screen, courtroom chaos in between. Wine and laughter, we all bleed. Screaming trials, feeding needs.